Welcome back, everyone, to the Fanspeak Network. This is another episode of Talking Ball with Steveospeak. We'll be getting into some drafts in a couple minutes. Probably doing Superflex and maybe a Pitbull or two. We'll see how many likes we get, how many people are active, and what everyone wants to do. Before we get in the first one, I want to give some people some time to come in. If you're coming in from Twitter, jump over in on YouTube. Make sure you like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and we will get into some fun drafts in a minute. Let me hit the chat. Who-Hames, good seeing you, my man. Had a good show earlier. Did a couple drafts on Who-Hames stream. That was fun. Disbanded with a dot. And Hartman, GM. Good to see you too, Hartman. Looking forward to doing some drafts. I'll give it another minute just to let some people filter in who might want to do Superflex. So far this week, we haven't gotten any new drafts from Underdog. I do think the way Superflex is trending, I will enter from my phone, but I will just bring it up here. Let's see here. We're at 90% now, 88%. So could be like 90% by tomorrow. I think it's going to fill, during the weekend at some point. Pitbull, we are a little further behind, but almost 65%. And the Corgi, I haven't done mine yet. Just not a total fan of the contest, but I'll still probably do it 57%. So, the ones that are going to be filling soon are getting there. Superflex being the first one. We'll be interested to see. We'll be interested to see how that pay, what comes next. I could see them doing both the regular and maybe in a smaller Superflex contest. Fantasy football in Espanol, can you explain why Jonnu Smith has to fall in the draft? He went from being the third or fourth option to the second on the Steelers. I think it comes down to he's the second, but he's also got competition at his position. So it's going to be really hard for him to, like last year, he exceeded what most tight ends do, and that's why he was ranked that's why he finished so high. Most tight ends are in the 600 to 700 yard range, 3 to 6 touchdowns. A couple who got more, guys like Ertz and Pat Freiermuth, who he's now teammates with in that range, ended up top 10 tight ends. Guys who didn't, like Mike Gesicki had essentially the same numbers as these guys. He only had 2 touchdowns, and so he didn't finish in the top 10 tight ends. So Jonnu had 8 touchdowns last year, 800, almost 900 receiving yards, bunch of catches. So his ceiling case is limited. Even if he's the number 2 option on the Steelers, like still wide receivers are going to get theirs. We will talk about it because I did write an article about this. I do want to get into that. But I think he should fall just because the other upside case is for guys like Jake Ferguson to get back in the touchdown round. 2 years ago, he was a top 10 tight end because he had 7+ touchdowns. Goddard, likely, all these guys. I mean, I kind of have them in that range. So I'm not having them fall too far. But the guys like Warren and Loveland, Tucker Kraft, they have a much stronger upside case to just totally dominate the tight end position relative on their team. Mike Robb is streaming early because he has adult ballet class. Not sure, but he is getting ready for tomorrow's Jeopardy. It's going to be an afternoon Jeopardy session, but should be a great one. Pete Overzet, Neil Orfield, the battle of some of the best, best ball minds. So that should be a real fun one. Jason Calhoun, how's it going? Good to see you. And then Network Academy Sports Club Steelers are going to run the football probably more than any other team. I don't know if I agree with that. I think they're going to run at a high rate, but I think, yes, that has been somewhat Arthur Smith in the past, but even last year, we saw a pretty drastic difference between Fields and Russell Wilson. You extrapolated Fields' passing attempts through the course of a total year have been like 450 passing attempts. If you extrapolated Russell Wilson's passing attempts for 17 games, it would have been like 520 passing attempts. So that's like a 70 passing attempt gap, a pretty sizable gap between the two. I think Rodgers is even more of a passer. Even Russ was scrambling some. So I think Rodgers is even more of a passer. I think they'll run at a high rate, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's going to be this, total ground and pound. Like some people thought with Arthur Smith in the past. Remember, a lot of that is with the Falcons, whose quarterback was, Desmond Ridder, and Marcus Mariota before that. So, yeah, I just think there's maybe some more upside there. And we saw last year with the Jets, Aaron Rodgers passed about 600 times. It was in the high 580s. So just something to keep in mind. All right, let's get into the first draft. We will do a Superflex to start. And I will get in from my phone just so I don't have the location error issue, which seems to always happen at the worst possible time. NFL Puppy Bud Superflex. I will be entering a 20-second counting down now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, enter. And let's bring this up. And it is not registering yet, so hopefully no issues from the phone. Let me look through actives to see if it's caught. 6 more to start, so there is some room for you guys. Need to refresh on here. And 4 more to start. We have that in here. I know Ball. Hey, Thad, we agree on a lot of things, so I'm not going to argue that. That's him here with the left hand up, the good old Commanders cheer. But now there is actually something to cheer about for Commanders fans, so that's fun. Hopefully for another good year for Jaden and this offense, get this Terry deal done. I'm not really worried about it, but it's just annoying that it's, kind of in the headlines. Draft starting soon, so we did get it to fill. Remember, please hit the like button. It helps us out a lot. I know this is not going to be the shock to anyone who's in Whoham streams, but I have the 102 pick. So I've gotten pretty damn lucky with my Superflex early picks. And I will, don't want to leave no mystery. I'm taking a quarterback. I see Jason here. Latomsky is in here. I was in a DraftKings draft with him earlier. Not recognizing anyone else. Turd Ferguson, I think I've done drafts with before. Not sure if he's in the chat and if anyone else is in here, please, put it out there. We got my sister checking in. Very annoying the Terry deal isn't done yet. Agreed. Even know who takes it's not the 101. I know it's like I don't know what to do with my hands. So we'll see what T-Regs gives me. I will just snap Lamar here. For me, while I like all 4 of the Russian quarterbacks up top, I do think Allen, Jackson are very close. Slight break before you go down to Jaden. Not that it's a big thing. So yeah, I'm taking these guys all the time, and yeah, I've gotten very good luck taking these top 5 guys. I mean, Burrow's a little earlier because sometimes he falls like 6, 7, or 8. He falls at least to Jason here. Jason wants him at the 6th spot. And so I do have the highest percentage of Burrow, but I'm above the field on all 4 of the guys above him. So I will readily admit that I've been very lucky with my draft slots. So one thing I wanted to talk about, let me bring up the board here as we start going. If you want, we have a Fanspeak Substack subscription talking all things best ball. We just updated our rankings from the trade yesterday. I also wrote an article about the fantasy fallout for Dolphins and Steelers. And one thing I did want to highlight, my initial reaction was I was really down, just to go back to fantasy football and Espanol's comment from earlier, I was really down on Jonnu and Freiermuth from the trade. But then I looked at it a little bit more and I compared it to, well, how did Jonnu do with Arthur Smith in 2023? Very similar situation. Drake London, one kind of alpha wide receiver, and a tight end also competing with him. That in that case, Kyle Pitts. And if you look at it, both Bijan finished actually third on the team in targets, Pitts second on the team, but Jonnu was fourth on the team. He had 70 targets. And Jonnu and Kyle Pitts finished both top 20 in in total points and points per game among tight ends that year. And their biggest issue was neither one. They both, I think, only had three touchdowns, because that team only threw for 17 touchdowns, because we were talking about Desmond Ridder and a few games of Taylor Heineke. So the situation here with Aaron Rodgers, one, I think they're going to throw the ball more. Two, I think the passing quality of passing is just going to be better, and there's just going to be more touchdowns. Rodgers threw 28 touchdowns last year for the Jets. I think 25 plus is very doable this year for the Steelers. So if you start breaking that up, and Jonnu and Freiermuth have 5-7 touchdowns, maybe they both have 5, whatever, even still, they have paths to still be like top 15 tight ends. Let's see, I'm back on the clock. I will take Drake May. I did get my rankings updated on here. I have May higher in this. I just believe with his rushing upside, Lamar May, I just love that start. We'll see if it might go a chain here if T-Regs doesn't take him. Could go Caleb also. Okay, he takes him. I will take a chain here. I definitely moved him up in this with the trade as well. I think he's made the biggest beneficiary. Let me catch up with chat. Well, let me go to the thing and go back. Do you always take Burrow at 5? I wouldn't say always. I think one, there's been a time or two that Hurts has been there at 5 because, Chase or Barkley were taken ahead of him. And I think I've taken Barkley or Bijan there once or twice just to mix it up a little bit. But yeah, most of the time I'm taking Burrow. There's just such a big gap. I mean, Burrow's 3 healthy seasons. He's finished as top 10, top 3, and top 4. He's finished 10th, 3rd, and 4th in his 3 healthy seasons, including one of those was he was coming off the ACL when he finished 10th. So this guy has the upside to warrant that 5th overall pick. His last 2 healthy years, 3rd and 4th overall, he can compete with these rushing quarterbacks. So in this format, especially, like, while I understand why in regular there's a bigger gap between the two, I don't think that should be the case in this format. Just because the quarterback scoring is so important, and the depth of the quarterback scoring isn't as viable. I suppose we want to take the best couple quarterbacks for Superflex, one in early pick. I absolutely love. Yeah. No, I mean, I think there are ways to be successful from any spot, whether you are taking a skill guy at the back half. I definitely take a lot of running backs. I take very little Chase because he's the one receiver I kind of think it's worth it in the first round, but I have him more like 10th, 11th, and he just never gets there. This was Superflex. But yeah, no, doubling up quarterbacks at the back end can be a lot of fun. Mahomes, Nicks, Baker, Nicks, or Fields or Murray. Let's see, Tyler, how's it going, man? Doing good. Let's see, it is not showing me in my tab how quickly I'm up. I know I'm less than 11 picks away, so that's slightly annoying as I go back and forth. my brain can't get over to concussions like some of them were bad. Yeah, no, I mean it is risky, with the concussions, and I do think the Dolphins, you look at Jonnu's was the player who's the least affected with Tua's absences last year, but Achane, Hill, Waddle, even though Hill and Waddle were down kind of across the board, they were still much better with Tua than without. Let's see what we got here coming up. So I do think it's a tier break. You know what? I'm gonna go T. Higgins. Consider the double Miami, but I'll go T. Higgins. I still think T. Higgins is undervalued. Also considered Bryce Young and Chase Brown, but hoping Young would come back here. If not, I have other outs like Young comes back. Even with the 2 week 14 buys, I don't care. I think Bryce Young has a higher upside than a lot of quarterbacks kind of taking this in this range. So I'll bet on that. Tony, good seeing you. No, that is true. The cover 2 zone coverage of these two tight ends are accumulating. No, and I think it's a way. And let's, obviously different quarterback, different team, different coach, whatever. But, Patriots saw an advantage with the way defenses were playing them. And that's why, and they saw a discount in taking 2 good athletic tight ends. And then other teams started taking more and more athletic tight ends. We saw Jimmy Graham and, some other guys really start to rise. And of course, the rise of like Kelsey, and Mark Andrews and stuff like that. But tight ends can be very effective, particularly if they can create mismatches against some of these linebackers, smaller corner types who are in nickel trying to cover a tight end out in the slot. Just doesn't always work the way that you hope it will. No, those are all very, very bad concussions. And it's concern. It's concern with guys like Chris Olave and Cedric Tillman has had a couple of bad ones, but at the same time, I know there is absolute data that you're more likely for concussion the more you have, particularly in a shorter time frame. It's not like, I don't think it's say like an ACL or something like that where you're just like your risk is considerably higher, like 20% higher within the first 3 years to rupture that ACL again, or the opposite leg. So, I know there's much more data for those types of injuries, and those can just make you slower and less, less of a quality player as your career goes on. So up in 4 picks, we have 3 quarterbacks. Sometimes I take 4 if somebody falls. Nobody's really fallen here. I was considering Daniel Jones. He goes to Fantasy Meme Maker. But I will probably hit back the running back area. I know it's been low. I haven't done as much super flex lately, but this is something I believe I try and win the quarterback position, the super flex position, the 2 running back positions, and the flex. And that is usually done through a running back, particularly with receiver depth, much better in this format than the other one. I want to get quality running backs. I'm fine having like Higgins being a, kind of an anchor receiver for me. So I will go right back to James Conner. Tyler Shuck is moving up pretty considerable amount. I don't necessarily think it's wrong in this format. I think any starting quarterback is viable. Even backup quarterbacks are viable if you know that they're playing. So my favorite combo in the first with the 1-2 spot is whether it's Allen or Jackson. I know I've gotten Fields plus May at least once or twice, I think with both of them. So that would be my favorite. Sure, I've only seen. Yeah, I do have a good amount. So let's go back to the board. And we have Jason and Latomsky. Here on River Rat with the 3 quarterbacks right there in the middle. Latomsky starting with 2 and then pivoting to other positions. Strong. I think both builds can work. I do like the Huron River Rat getting these 2 elite running backs and then still getting 3 starters, particularly in 3 different bye. Well, actually, Goff and Stafford are the same bye, but similar to me, I have 2 guys on the same bye. We're talking about 3 clear starters here and then hitting your receiver. So I like that. It's probably my favorite kind of pivot away from starting quarterback. But, I wrote about it before, but the data that I did last year, my 85 drafts, 29 advanced to the playoffs. Of those, I believe as 20 of them had 3 quarterbacks through 4 rounds. And that's why I'm pretty bullish on doing that. And are there ways that it can work outside of that? Absolutely. But something like 20, I want to say 25 of them, I don't have it in front of me right now, 25 of them had 3 through 5 rounds. So last year, that was my priority. It's definitely going to be again. And last year, I think there was actually better value late because you had guys like uncertainty around guys like Darnold and Russ, where if you read the tea leaves, these guys are probably starting a fair bit, if not all season. And then, even rookies like Bo Nix, Drake May, they were going like the 8th round last year, 9th round. We're getting to the 8th round here, and we're talking the Cleveland situation and we're talking the Giants situation. That's all that's left. So it's definitely a much different format here. Allen Fields next. Oh, that's a fun one. And I'm on the clock. Should have paid more attention to that. Tyler Shuck falls back to me. I will absolutely take it. Maybe T-Regs wouldn't take him with 3 quarterbacks already, but just in case, I think the value there is enough, particularly when I have 2 week 14 QBs already. And I feel like that's the other thing, like going the Giants here wouldn't help me. Jackson Dart, Russ already went. Jackson Dart is a week 14 as well. So it wouldn't help me as much. Jalen Waddle, Pollard, Godwin, Dunze. You just go Pollard and just be exceedingly strong at both quarterback and running back. 4 starters in both, plus T. Higgins. Feels like a really, really good start. Yeah, Huheems and I did a couple drafts very early when this contest launched. We heard Kyler Nick's team. That was pretty nasty. James Conner, so dependable, especially midseason. Yeah, no, and he's been, if you look at him from a per game standpoint, he's been just excellent every year. Last year was the first year in like 5 years that he's like missed fantasy playoff time. Before he'd missed like 3 to 5 games in the middle of the season, maybe 1 year was 6, but he was just crushing in the playoffs. And he did up until, unfortunately, week 17 when he had like 2 carries for 2 yards or whatever it ended up being. And definitely killed a few teams of mine. But he was absolutely excellent again last year, showing no real sign of slowing down. I think it's weird who people put the age marker on to because, CMC, Kamara, Connor, Mixon, Aaron Jones, they were all the same draft class. So they're all roughly the same age and they all keep producing. So I'm going to keep drafting them. Do you have a slight risk? Sure. But to me, it's not as drastic as people make it out to be. And I'm not going to worry about a Trey Benson overtaking him until I see it. So let's go back to the board. Yaron gets his first tight end, TJ Hawkinson. I do like that. I think, I think the early tight ends, now sometimes they get pushed back. I got Bowers pushed the other day into the 40s. I really like that. I've had McBride pushed to the 50s. That's kind of where I'll take them. Same with Kittle, like Kittle at 61, not my favorite, but when Kittle was coming back here into 68 to 72, yeah, that's kind of where I take them. So, but as you get further along, like the gap for the tight ends weakens because all the quarterbacks are now gone. You're getting closer and closer to like their normal ADP range. Like Evan Ingram is going roughly at his regular ADP. So Hawkinson, you're actually still getting a little bit of value on, like 20 picks of value. And so I kind of I've taken some Hawkinson shots for sure. So even though my guy Cam Scadaboo is there, I do think I need to go receiver. I will take Debo. And one thing is I don't care about stacking nearly as much in this contest. Not to say that's not important, but again, the most important positions to get right are the quarterback positions. If you can get some quality stacking options with them and bringbacks, great. If not, I'm not gonna let that solely dictate how I build. Are there times where maybe I reach up and take a wide receiver earlier to get a stack? Yeah, there are times, but it's just not near the priority that it is in other contests. I do still fall into a stack here with Andrews and Lamar, so absolutely like that. If I get stacks from May, Young, and Chuck, it'll happen. If not, I'm not going to overly worry and be concerned. Let's go back to the board. We are starting to see some changes. Joe Flacco goes up at least a round. He's usually in like the 140s. So, but I'm guessing, Chaz he's got Jaden Daniels, but then Anthony Richardson and now Joe Flacco. So he's, there's Jaden Daniels is obviously stud, but your super flex position is going to be fairly weak, particularly if Flacco doesn't start a ton. So that's the concern when you feel like you're getting these mega starts like Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall, RJ Harvey. That looks great. There's no question Amon-Ra and Brian Thomas give him better receivers than I have, though T. Higgins, I think, could, he finished second in points per game last year. We're not exactly talking about, a guy who's no shot at being like a top 10 receiver. But it's just, I want to win the quarterback and super flex positions. And I feel I am going to do that more often than not with these kind of builds. So up in 2 picks, and then I'll get back to the chat after I make these 2 selections. So I do get another stack here with Shaheed, just kind of letting the draft come to me. Any of these receivers I am totally fine with, but I will prioritize Kyle Williams just for the stack. So for me, it's like a tiebreaker. And Trey Harris goes. Could take Bateman for another one, but I don't mind. And I don't mind some of these more upside guys. Remember, with the way I'm building, I'm only starting 2 receivers almost every week. I think most times, Achane, Kamara, Connor, Pollard, these guys are carrying my flex. With 4 quarterbacks, even on week 14, odds are Tyler Shuck's going to outscore most guys who would be competing for a super flex role. If not, great. But, I just think I only need 2 receivers the majority of the weeks. And so I'm quite happy taking some upside shots on these rookies because, they might not be the week in, week out scorers, but I think they'll produce enough. JT Bestball, how's it going, man? Thanks for joining. I was on JT Bestball's channel a couple weeks ago. Did a Superflex with him. Also did a BBM. But yeah, no, a lot of fun. And I think some people try and knock Superflex has been open for so long. It's been a month. The regular puppy was about a month. The first Schnauzer was over a month. So, and some of that was, for those two, I will give it, some of that was maybe due to the schedule not being released the first 2 weeks, but, and the New York stuff. But still, I think Underdog, with all that they've been launching, has to be very happy with filling a Superflex that's 4 times the size of last year's Superflex puppy. There are more entries in this single contest than there were in all the Superflex drafts, I believe, last year put together, or roughly about the same. So I'm guessing they released last year, I think they just did a pug and golden plus a Pomeranian. That was actually the largest contest. That had over 100K entries. But I think we could see like a hound dog or German Shepherd plus, but Superflex type contest drop, maybe after this fills. But I do think we start to see some other regular contests. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Chihuahua. I know last year they released like the second Chihuahua on the 4th of July, but they only made a 4 max entry, which was a little weird. And also maybe like something like a little higher stakes, like a Dalmatian has typically been around this time. I could see that as well. We are going to we'll go Braylon Allen. I want more running back help. And I already have one tight end I feel good about. If I get either Strange or Ertz, I'm good though. I obviously have Thielen ranked higher, but I will take Ertz here. This is right around his ADP. If I need to stop at 2 tight ends, I will. I kind of see where I'm at. As you can see, I bumped Freiermuth down in the ranking some. I had him probably right around ADP prior. I did bump him down. Still, I think he's very draftable. I'm going to stream Steve co-drafts on and does himself. Dude is going to have his hand in over 10K small entries. Probably not that many, though. I am drafting on all the sites, so I do have quite a bit out there, both pre-draft and, of course, this and Superflex and everything else. So it is, it's something I really love and am passionate about, and I appreciate everyone for joining the stream and helping out. Please don't forget to like the video. You're going to hopefully do a couple more drafts tonight. As new to Underdog, I've been rather surprised how quickly tournaments are filling. Yeah, no, they do fill pretty quickly. And, this year might be even down a little bit from previous years, just with, we've even seen some of this like California uncertainty and stuff like that, but hopefully that all gets resolved. I saw Underdog did an injunction to prevent California from doing something stupid. So hopefully Hartman and all our California folks can keep drafting. Jason, we need a Beagle. Criminal, there's never been a Beagle draft. Yeah, I agree. No, Meg has always had boxers. She's wanted a boxer draft. There's a lot of big dog breeds out there that haven't done it. And, they could use that for, whether it's just something different. Like we now have 3 different $5 contests. So it could be the same price point, just a different style, just a smaller one, a bigger one. So coming up, 2 picks. I will just easily take Adam Thielen if he's there. Get my stack. Again, not the biggest priority, but always happy to do it, especially when it's a guy like Thielen, who I feel really good about and helps anchor some of these more riskier receivers, Debo and Shaheed, due to injury. Thielen goes right before. That one does hurt. Just because I want a little bit more certainty over Knoll, I will take Slayton. Just as Hill goes, I was hoping to get Hill. Probably will grab Jarquez Hunter here. It's just like his upside play and big spike ability. I think Kyron is still the one, the one there and has the touchdown role, but I don't mind, taking some shots on Hunter, especially kind of over Corum. At first, I was kind of even on Hunter and Corum, but I'll probably have much more Hunter than Corum when it's all said and done. Did you do similar volume last year? Or are you doing much more this season? Thank you, FK Coolers, for joining us. I'm definitely doing much more this year. Last year, I probably did now, and this is in pre-draft, Superflex, Marathon, weekly winners, everything on UD. I did like 700 total drafts, and that includes the pre-draft, and that includes last year. There was rookie, sophomore, and did like 20 of those, made 25 of those. On DraftKings, I did over 300, and on Drafters, I did, I think, even more than that because they had a couple minis, a Superflex, and the main. I maxed the main on the other two sites. I didn't max BBM. Only did 57, just because of the different price point, not having the rewards program, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I did last year. Already, I'm well above that, or not well above 700, but I'm going to be well above that because I maxed basically everything pre-draft on all three sites, and then just hammering drafts as they come. I'm over 200 regular drafts and well over. I'm going to max the Superflex, so my total volume will be increased this year for sure. Paul in the chat, good seeing you. 25th like, appreciate that. What am I drafting next? I can leave it up to the chat if we want to pivot to Pitbull. I don't mind doing another Superflex. I need to get more of both. Up in 4 picks, and then I will answer the rest. Could still take a third tight end. I don't mind guys like Dewan and Sanders, but the thing I keep in mind with tight end is your tight end is almost never going to hit the flex. Just with more depth at receiver, the quality of running backs that I'm getting, I think it's very rare. But I'm very tempted. I'm going to start with 2-2. I feel like I know I can get a 7th receiver in the 20th round. So I'm not going to take Coker here. Jatavian Sanders would be a stack, would be slightly interesting. But do I care enough about the stack is the question. According to ADP, I'll take it. Mainly I view this mostly for injury insurance and anything else. But I think there's nothing wrong with that. I have 2 older tight ends, guys who've dealt with injuries in the past. So having a little extra insurance, I don't mind. Mike Robb, show anyone your account balance to flex on them or wrestle Lady Friend. I can't say that I have, but maybe I should. Good ideas, always a good idea, Mike. Do you find your approach changing much with the increased volume? So I not entirely. I need to re-upload my best ball overlay. So I do use that some, probably not as much as I should since I draft so much from my phone, particularly like my slow drafts. I could utilize it a lot more. It is a very great tool for that, no question. But I definitely check my exposures even in the app, like where I'm at on certain guys, and kind of go by feel. And right now, I'm still hunting for value as we get deeper into the season, the off season and camp, and we get some news on certain things. Am I going to change my priors on some people? Absolutely. I mean, I've already done that. When this started, I wasn't really taking a lot of, even after the draft, I wasn't taking a ton of like Swift or Roshan Johnson, because I really thought the Bears were live to sign like Dobbins or Nick Chubb even. Now I'm taking more of them. Kind of knew Aaron Rodgers was signing all along, but that changed my outlook on some things. This new trade is changing my outlook on some of the Steelers situation. But I'm not drafting Jonnu and Freiermuth. I still think they both have a role. I think they still could, like I said before, they still pass to be top 20, both even top 15 tight ends. If like the Steelers, I think the biggest question is, do the Steelers add another receiver? If they don't, I think they could both be like top 15 tight ends, very akin to what Jonnu and Pitts did with Arthur Smith in a much worse passing offense, where they were like 14th and 17th in total points. So it is tough managing exposures, and obviously every site's different. So Underdog is the easiest with the tool and just kind of looking at it. One thing it is tough is I noticed, and right now I'm only in like 20, I've only done like 20 some marathon, 20 some sprint. But my exposures are a little off. Like in one of them, my field's like 40% of the time. And I want to say sprint. And, I like Fields a lot, but I don't want him that much, just given his history and injury risk. So it comes back. I am going to take just a safety valve in Ray McLeod. 87 targets, 600 some plus yards last year. I think he's a fine last round pick. And let's get into another draft pretty quick here. I'll do those slows later. And is the chat, put in chat if you want to do another puppy superflex or a Pitbull. And I will give it a second and then see if there's anyone in the chat who has a preference. If no preference, I'll probably start with the puppy superflex and then we'll go from there. And let's see where we're at on the likes. I'm going to bring it up on my phone. So looks like 27 likes. Appreciate everyone. Pitbull, but we'll do either. Steve, puppy superflex. Here for the vibes. Let's do a puppy superflex first. Reflect the Sun. Appreciate you joining us in chat. So I will do a puppy superflex first, and then maybe a Pitbull after. And let me get in from my phone in a second. So we'll do another puppy superflex. And I do think this is another thing they obviously changed while they kept it for BBM and I think eliminated both the 20 and 30 second options. They did just go down to the 20-second option for puppy with superflex. I think that's a smart call, especially as they're trying to push the volume to finish up. I'll be interested to see what they do for like the next puppy. Do they do both? Do they just do the 20 seconds? I think that will be a little interesting. Maybe they do both to start, and similar to this, they push it down once it hits a certain rate. So I'll be entering puppy but superflex, counting down now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, enter. 4 more to start. Hope some of you can get in. I have 10 more puppy superflexes after this. Still have slows going, so my numbers aren't totally I don't have all my drafts done yet. I think I counted last night. I think I had 20 slows going, 22 slows, something like that, in the puppy Superflex. So the room is filled. Like I was just in time for drafters to release one. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Drafters does seem like they're getting one out soon. Oh, sorry, Jason, jumped the gun in the underflow. Cool, I have 5 or so slows going. Oh, appreciate that. Absolutely appreciate it. And that's what I like, and that's what I'm here for. Oh, man. So Latomsky got in here. Paul got in here, Legion 13. I'm not sure I see anyone else, but I got the 10th spot. I don't know what's going on. This is just unacceptable. No, I joke. And like Tim said earlier, like back half of the draft, I think there's strategies there that can work really well also. And for me, honestly, I need to even out my exposures a little bit because I'm not getting some of those guys nearly as much. Oh, appreciate it, Paul. Sorry you got in the underflow as well. All right. This one started. Josh Allen. First 3 picks go as one would expect. That is the other interesting thing in this. Like every now and then you see like a chase go in the top 4, maybe in the top 3, but the initial picks in this are as tight as you'll see in any contest. We're seeing more variability as like Jefferson or Lamb get pulled up above like Barkley, Bijan above Barkley. I've seen Gibbs above Barkley. You just don't see much difference. Burrow this time flips Hurts, but I still think those 5, there is a gap there. Paul grabs Bijan. I'll be up. Saquon goes right there. So I'm a little I don't mind taking a running back first, but here I'm going to take Mahomes. I don't have as much of him because I a lot of times do take a running back in this range. Gibbs, Barkley falling, Bijan sometimes. So I will go Mahomes, but I think you can make a case for Jefferson and Lamb. Just part of the issue is with needing less receivers, I feel I can mix and match. Like my last draft, sure, I missed out on Thielen, which I would have felt a little even better about my receiver room, but I have T. Higgins, Deebo Samuel, those types of guys, like some rookies, guys like Shaheed. I feel I'm going to mix and match pretty well. Am I going to lead the room in receiver points? No, not even close. But I don't think I'm so far behind. And I do think in that kind of build, I'm going to be fairly ahead most of the teams in quarterback, running back, super flex, and flex scoring. So that is the way I generally look at it. This one coming back. Let's see what Stanley Chad does, and then he takes Knicks. I will go McCaffrey here. Obviously, really like Kyler and Fields, but I'm okay taking an elite running back. Should we go? X and tell me he has to fix the draft order for you. No, though I do think some people do wonder if I do have some in with Underdog. Definitely don't. Wish I did. No. But yeah, it's been nice. I mean, having the early picks, but I actually do think you can win in any direction. I mean, last year, yes, some of the elites went off, but it's also guys like Jaden Daniels. It was guys like Joe Burrow. These were not going in the top 5 picks last year on Superflex. of course, guys like Purdy and Goff were good QB2s. Baker late, I mean, you're probably getting him as your QB3. And of course, guys like Nix and Darnold. So, there was definitely more. You could win in various spots of the draft last year for sure. So, I forgot to go to the board. So both Legion and Lutomsky take the quarterback, running back, just vice versa. Start, same thing that I did. Only one team went quarterback, which also makes me feel better, pushing some quarterbacks back. We'll see if they take the third quarterback in a row or they pivot to another position in the 2 spot here. Again, if anyone else is in this draft, wants to jump in chat, let us know. He does not, so he pushes down guys as well. Lutomsky taking the double running backs with the elite. I mean, Henry Chain, and this is the way I look at it. I mean, I'm definitely more totally bullish on quarterback play, but he's getting Henry in a chain. Essentially, he's getting the 13th and 15th player. Guys are now pulling up a chain to the 12 spot in regular. So you're getting 2 first-round talent running backs plus an elite quarterback. The rest of your team's going to be fine. A couple other guys hit up 2 quarterbacks. Legion right there with them. I will also be in that mix when we get to my pick. And I will just take Lawrence here. Big believer in Liam Cohen and Lawrence. I think you look at a situation, last year, the Jaguars were one of those teams where basically everything that went wrong did go wrong. Didn't have the support of the coaching staff, offensive line issues. All his weapons went down outside of Brian Thomas Jr. He went down. He still had 4 20-point games and his 9 games, I think he played 10 games. So he still had a lot of very usable weeks, particularly from a Superflex perspective. And I think everything's better this year. So that is, to me, a situation I'm going to feel good about. Bryson goes there. I will take Penix. Definitely consider Jonathan Taylor. I mean, the McCaffrey-Taylor start, I've done that before. But I feel like there's 3 running backs here. 4 if you count Chase Brown. I could get a guy coming back potentially. Not one of those 4, but I'm getting Cook, or I'm not the biggest Kyron fan, but because some other teams will now feel forced to take a quarterback. So I wouldn't be surprised if Stafford gets pulled up. Geno, Rodgers, Cam Ward, Tua, they all could go before me and get pulled up and now push down some of these players to me is the other way I look at it. So let's see where we at here. Almost near the turn. Legion grabs Bucky. Tomsky's on the clock. He takes Stafford, getting a second guy. So I have 3. I think I'm the only one with 3 quarterbacks so far. And I know others will get there as well. And there are ways where, if you're comboing, Joe Flacco and Jackson Dart or something like that, or just the other thing you can do is handcuff your quarterbacks, especially if it's an interesting handcuff like a Tyrod Taylor with the Jets or Malik Willis with, Jordan Love, Marcus Mariota with Jaden Daniels. That's a way to ensure you're always going to have that quarterback room that's also a nice way to, ensure you're getting points outside of every week but the bye week. I'm a little surprised to see Hill falling this far, though. I generally am going to take Higgins over him in pretty much anything. There he goes. So it doesn't come back to Legion. So if Rashee Rice is there, I will take that. Devontae Adams is another one I love to start my quarterback room with, receiver room with. James Cook, I think, is a very fair pick as well. I'm going to go Adams. I know not everyone is in agreement with this take, but Devontae Adams still, even at his age, still absolutely has not just top 10, but top 5 wide receiver potential. And there's a path where he actually ends up the highest scoring fantasy wide receiver in his team. Puka Nacua has never been a big touchdown machine, particularly in the red zone. That's Devontae Adams' game. Like, he is one of the best of all time in that range. So with McVay, with Stafford, I think he's very, very viable. So quarterbacks get popped. I would have considered like Darnold there. I'm going to go Joe Mixon. The receivers there are fine, but again, I'd just rather have some running back value. For those who are in the underflow draft, how's that one going for you? And let's see. Let me go back to the board. Legion picks up JSN. Again, his first receiver. I like that. JSN, this guy goes early to mid third round. He's slipping a little bit, but as your first receiver, because you have 3 quarterbacks, 2 elite rank, 2 running, first and second round pick running back, and a third round receiver, and you got 3 quarterbacks. This is who Hames and I have talked about this before. This is why when people worry about taking too many quarterbacks early in Superflex drafts, like, you're still getting an essentially entire draft. You got a first, a second, and a third round pick. Latomski's, obviously he went quarterback first, so didn't necessarily get the first round pick, but 2 early seconds, late third, early fourth, late third, early fourth, and 2 late third, early fourths in Hall and Mike Evans. And he only has 2 quarterbacks so far, but the point being is, like, he still took 2 quarterbacks in the top 4 rounds, and his team looks stacked. So let's see. Tomsky comes back with another very early quality receiver, Jameson Williams. 3, 2, 1. No super surprises here. I mean, sometimes you get Kittle to fall back more, but the tight ends did not fall in this one. It seems like Bowers, late third, but not into the fourth. And where did McBride go? Yeah, McBride. Yeah. I wish the tight ends would fall a little bit. I think they're a little overvalued still in Superflex. Daniel Jones does go right there. I probably would have taken him. Bit of a fall, bit of a value. So I didn't get Rice, but I will take Worthy here. Hunter also would have been a stacking option, but There's other Jaguars I don't mind grabbing later if it falls to me. Again, not overly forcing it. Probably going running back here. And, I could obviously go back to Tyler Shuck, but here at least, maybe I get a Giants guy later for a fourth quarterback. Could do Cousins just to ensure the Atlanta room, or if Cousins gets traded. That was unfortunate. The three running backs I wanted most, all going in a row. But actually, just get the other stack. I'll catch up at a running back later in this draft. Do you think correlation matters as much in Superflex as BBM? So, I think stacking helps for sure. I don't think week 17 correlation is as important. It's smaller playoff pods, if you're trying to, or also week like 16 stacking, it's 1 to 10 versus 1 to 16. I assume other Superflex contests will be even smaller, like the 1 to 5s, 1 to 6s. And then the finals aren't as big. And I just think there's just, because like if you get the perfect situation where you're stacking and getting bringbacks for all your quarterbacks, great. But I wouldn't reach too much to do so. I just think you don't want to cost yourself. I think structural build is more important. Like being strong at running back, being very strong at quarterback in the super flex position, because I want, like when I say I want to win the super flex, that's why I like having 3 or 4 quarterbacks, because I want the depth. I want to know that I'm always having guys competing for that role. Yes, a running back can fill in. Yes, a receiver can fill in, but it's just, they're not going to fill in, week by week near as often. If you looked at the Superflex puppy last year, I think of the top 20 or 25 teams, and it was a smaller contest, but in the finals, the top 20 or 25 teams, only one didn't have a quarterback in count as a Superflex. It's just your points are going to be so much higher. Like, even if you are getting, like Justin Herbert, week 17 last year, like 23, 24 points, whatever it was. That's, like only a couple running backs, only a couple receivers beat that. Even some of the top end receivers, of course, T. Higgins beat it, but if you have T. Higgins on your team, he's going in as your wide receiver 1. He's not going to go in as your super flex. So you would have had to thread the needle absolutely perfectly to have like another position beat like a Justin Herbert, who was quarterback 8 that week, 9, something like that. So that's kind of what we're talking about here, is anyone who's getting you 20 points, there's only a handful of running backs and receivers who get that in any given week. And I'll answer the rest of the question in a second. Dart goes, you know what? I need to catch up at running back. Boy, I think Stanley Chad's going to take whichever I don't. I'll start with Mason, even though he just gets seen by his Mixon. I think there's a chance Scadaboo comes back to me and I just double tap it here. But Stanley Chad probably taking a running back with 1, if not 2 of these picks. But stacking is important. It's just, I want to make sure I'm having 2 quarterbacks for sure. And the running back, winning the running back, which also to me wins the flex. If I'm winning those 5 positions, or essentially top 2, top 3 in the pod, if I'm winning those 5 positions, I don't care what happens with my quarterbacks or tight ends, but I feel I'm going to be so far ahead of the field. And yeah, maybe I miss out on some of the elite guys, and Scadaboo does come back to me. So I feel much better about my running back situation now at 3-4-3. Let me go back to the board. But even in the finals, I just think having the running backs versus the perfectly correlated receivers are going to pay off for you a little bit more. I'm going to be very low on all the elite receivers just because I'm not as high on them in this format. I have 1 or 2 shares of maybe all of them. There might even be one that I'm missing just because
those first like 6-7 receivers just go so high for my how I feel. But to answer your question, I know it was a long-winded answer, but correlation always matters. But even in regular, it only matters so much. And I think we, just keep that in mind. Like the week 17 bringbacks doesn't always work. This past BBM winner had 0. The year before, the bringback was Alexander Madison, who did absolutely nothing. He didn't count, but that was his only bringback to the Packers stack. So just, I'd keep that in mind. And then that team that won, he had 3 quarterbacks, but because he got sniped on some of his early receivers, his only quarterback that was stacked with pass catchers was Jordan Love with Christian Watson and luckily Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed's who he needed. His other 2 quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, totally unstacked, and then Tua, who was stacked with Raheem Mostert, a running back who isn't the most known for catching the football. But that got him there, and that's what you need. Paul, the underflow is sure interesting one with only Geno through 8 rounds, and others top quarterbacks are Rodgers and Darren Jones. After going a 4 wide receiver start, damn, I wish I was in the draft. I do think those are going to be hard to contend. Like I don't care if you hit the best 4 receivers. Just so happens that they go in the first 4 rounds. It's, I think, going to be extremely hard to contend. Don't forget the next people. We get to 40 drafts. Steve, multi-table draft on Drafters, DK, and Underdog. I don't know if I'll do that, but I'll definitely be doing more drafts. And there will be a time where I multi-table and do a couple in a row. Earlier, I was doing an Underdog draft on Huheim's stream, doing a DraftKings draft on our stream, and a pre-DraftKings draft because I got in early. So I was doing 3 at once. Wasn't the most entertaining, but for me, but I did it. And maybe I'll do that sometime. Makes sense. Thank you. Of course. Appreciate it. Appreciate Huheim's. Let's see, where are we at? Oh, Mooney. Again, let the stack fall to me. We'll scoop it up. And this is a wide receiver room. I don't think I'll stop at 5, but I will probably stop at 6. And I'll probably I might even have 5 quarterbacks with 2 late guys. I tag on these kind of guys. I know it sounds crazy, but it sounds like more and more Kenny Pickett will be starting games for the Cleveland Browns this year. That is crazy. I'm doing Superflex and weekly winners all at once. Yeah, that's another thing. I've done like BBMs and Superflex at the same time, doing 2 different people's streams. That can be tough to do, to have different mindsets on these different things. I'm going to take Flacco with the first pick. If he's back at the second one, I might. Oh no, this is the back end of my picks. Still don't think I'm going to take Flacco. I'm going to go Ray Davis here. I want a little bit more help at running back. Love the receivers here. Definitely tapped this area last time, but don't feel the need that I have to hit it again. Again, with my first 4 receivers, Devontae Adams, I think, is going to be my guy every week. And then Worthy, Hunter, Mooney. I think I'm covered, outside of week 8, I'm covered with my 2 receivers, mainly through that group. I'm going to tack on 2 guys, but there's a chance I'd go 4 tight ends, but I really don't do that in this format just because even with the 20 rounds, I don't think you get a lot out of it, the extra tight ends. It's the lowest scoring position to begin with, and they're just so much less likely to hit your flex. 4 puppy drafts, and for each pick, you have to take a shot. You get 1K subscribers in no time. Hey, if that works, it works. No, that would be something. That would be a lot of shots. Let's see what we got coming up. Let me go to the board. Sorry, it's been a little bit since I gone to the board.
Tomsky, he had the early quarterbacks and running backs. Now he's hammering receivers. And again, look at this receiver room: Mike Evans, Jameson Williams, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Matthew Golden. You would love that as your BBM receiver room. That's a pretty strong room. I know some people aren't as high on that, but I think it's very strong. Legion, again, quarterbacks, running backs early. Then JSN, Devonta Smith, back to Aaron Jones, Godwin, Ricky Pearsall, Shard Bateman, J.K. Dobbins, both running back, receiver room, strong to go with the 3 quarterbacks. I just think those are the types of builds that, you can be good at and help your advance rate. It's the ones like that were mentioned in the pre-draft that just aren't going to pay off. Even this guy in the one hole, Allen obviously is his first guy, but then it's Russell Wilson and Joe Flacco. So, early in the season, you're probably pretty good, and probably both are still starting through Allen's week, so at least you have that. But you could come to the last, after week 10, so 11, 12, 13, 14, and you're now relying on some running back or receiver to fill your super flex spot. I think that's going to be tough to compete. Too early in Cousins. Let's go Jake Ferguson. I think if Loveland comes back, I will take him. Probably be done at tight end. I'm fine with just being average at tight end. I just don't know if you get enough of an edge by totally dominating the position, particularly since it's rare. Even if and I know Huheems did this in the draft, which was more problematic because they were the same buy, but Bowers and McBride or Bowers and Kittle, whatever the case may be, how often are one of those guys hitting your flex? And I think it's very rare. Now you're going to dominate the tight end scoring, which is great. Anytime you dominate a position, that helps you. But it's just not as important as dominating the other ones. Now, Huheems read me the rest of that team, and it turned out totally fine because, he knows what he's doing. He knew how to get to the quarterback still and ensure that he's all fine across the board. But it's just harder to do, in this format, if you're not ensuring you're getting the quarterback starting points and the super flex starting points, that's just going to be rough. And like I read for the team in the one hole, I just don't know if there's enough juice in that team. Like this guy, Chris, Purdy, Herbert is nice. Tyler Shuck, okay, he's got 3 starters. That's doable. I think it can be thin. Most guys here seem to be getting at least 2 really good or 3 starters. So a little better than we see in some drafts. This Dodalex, Murray and Love, and then hitting back Jones and Dart. I think that's good strategy. You 4, particularly in the playoff weeks, 4 potential starters. Didn't still got Saquon and stuff. I mean, I probably would have liked it better with a different. And this is kind of what I mean. Like, if you give me Bucky, Ladd, AJ Brown, Josh Jacobs, I like this team probably better than McBride. That's just me. I know. And if you're doing volume, of course, mix it up, get some elite tight end, because maybe that is just what you need in the finals. McBride has a 28-point game and no other tight end comes close. So maybe it's something like that, but it's just something I keep an eye on for sure. Paul taking my guy Thielen. I get it. We talked about before. Just such an easy click in this range.
since, I have Cousins ranked a little higher, but his ADP is lower, so I think he'll be there for me at 183, especially with these guys both with 3 quarterbacks. I will take him here. Might even tack on a 5th late, especially if I'm not going to get a 3rd tight end. Just since I didn't get a truly elite guy. I mean, obviously Mahomes has been elite before. But I don't feel as good about my quarterback room as I say I did in the last draft. Yeah, and no, I remember you telling me it wasn't planned. You didn't, and I did that with quarterbacks in a draft where I took Allen and Lamar because of a Q and Air in a draft, and I'd still, I tacked on 3rd quarterback. I'm obviously fine with it. No, it's all how you pivot. I honestly think one could start like 2 receivers and still end up with a really good team. One could start 2 running backs, still end up with a good team. Starting 3 receivers, 4 receivers, I think that's harder. I think you could maybe start 3 running backs and then just hammer quarterbacks, get like 5 or 6 total. As long as a couple are clear starters, you might be fine. 2 running backs and receiver. Again, I think there's ways any of those paths could work. It's just you're making it harder by having less quarterback points. All these, only 2 of us are advancing out of this pod. Hopefully it's between me, Lumsky, and Paul, Legion 13. But we want to give our best shot every single time. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And again, if you're doing a volume, mix it up a little bit. But I've started 2 running backs before. I started running back receiver before. I don't know if I started 2 receivers. It's definitely not my favorite build, but I'm pretty sure I haven't done 3 running back or mix of 3, or definitely not 3 receivers. So it is, that's just for me, from what I've seen, the value, not wanting to miss out a quarterback. Thank you for leaving me Lockett. But I mean, Lockett is I think a fine pick in this type of format, good floor play. But no, I'm never going to fault anyone for taking Thielen. It wasn't planned. I say my wife like 5 times a week. I mean, why not both, Mike Rob? Why not? Can you start in the prison in Florida and then you could set up on the rocket? But yeah, I hate that. I think I've only had 1 draft canceled so far this year. It was a Superflex draft, and ironically, it was a running back start for me. I think I had like Bijan Mahomes from like the 9th spot, or I'm sorry, Bijan McCaffrey, but somebody really screwed it up. I think that's the only one. I might have had a pre-draft or 2 canceled, but definitely I had a pre-draft cancel. I was still able to fill it, but partly, of course, I do so many of my slow drafts, so those are, I don't know if those ever get canceled. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to go Keenan Allen. I really like him in Superflex position, particularly in a format I only have to start 2. If he ends up retiring, I know I said I'd only go 6 receivers, but I like the value there. I'm going to add a 6 running back, but I feel good enough about my running backs. I think I'm only stopping at 2 tight ends. Will maybe tag on another quarterback. My gut reaction is that tight end should be worth a bit more. Typical Ross Attorney, same number of tight ends need to be started, but less wide receivers are required to be started. So in that, I agree. Like I'm not one to
like you'll typically see, I don't take the elites, but I like getting one in that mid tier, whether it's Andrews, Kraft, somebody like that. Here I took Ferguson and Loveland. I think for me, it's there is just a bit of the tight ends, particularly, and this is mainly a Bowers McBride thing, is they don't fall enough. Like for comparison's sake, in regular, Bowers is now kind of near T. Higgins, Lad McConkey, AJ Brown. Look, Bowers goes here. McConkey and AJ Brown go after even McBride in this. T. Higgins and where did Tyreek go really high? Did I miss him? There's Tyreek. Yeah, T. Higgins, Tyreek, Adams. Where's Rice? I know I missed Rice. Oh, Rice. Yeah, like these guys who are going late second, right in between Bowers and McBride, they're going after them, considerably after them. I mean, Rice is going on a whole round after McBride. I just don't think that part makes sense. Like if they got pushed down to more palatable areas, I would be okay with it. Just because they're not scoring enough points. And outside of that Kelsey year a couple years ago, they're not separating themselves enough from the tight end field. So let's see. I'm going to probably go Rashard Smith, especially with the Mahomes, and he goes. I like Neal. I'm going to go Neal. And my final pick, there is still Theo Johnson for another tight end. I don't feel like I desperately need it. I think I'd like a little more quarterback. I don't love the handcuffs for Kansas City, Jacksonville as much. So I'm going to just take Mariota. Look, I hope Jaden Daniels stays healthy, but if he doesn't, Mariota just has such a perfect situation. Second year in the system, had 2 games of 19 or more fantasy points last year when filling in for Daniels, not even in the start, and just has that rushing upside as well. But so yeah, and the other part of it, Paul, is where they lose value is they're just not, because there's more wide receiver depth. Already I think it's tough for a tight end to hit your flex, but now with more wide receiver depth, I think it's extremely difficult. So taking a third is the chance that both are going to, play for you in a given week are just much lower than they are in a regular contest. So if the elites went a little later, I'd be more in on them. And then I feel even better about stopping at only 2. So yeah, I don't think you ignore it, but you're absolutely right. You're still starting the same number of tight ends, but you just don't have as many outs for your backup positions. And that's kind of the way I look at it. I do plenty of 3 tight end in Superflex, but I think just because it's not going to have the same. And the other thing is, if you look at regular, your quarterback position is going to score the most singular points, then kind of your running backs, and your top receivers are pretty close to that. And then your flex is, I think the best way to win the flex is by having a good third and fourth running back consistently filling in there versus your 4th, 5th, 6th receiver. But your tight end proportionally is going to score a higher number of points on those teams because it's comparing with, your 3rd, 4th running back, your 4th, 5th, 6th receiver. So it's comparing against that. So just your starting tight end in general is scoring a higher proportional points. But in this, like, because that wide receiver position's taken away, the flex position scoring is up, and then the super flex scoring position is going to be up, just kind of across the board, that your tight end is now scoring a lower proportional number of points for you. So that's why investing early is a little tough for me. But to say all that, I do it sometimes, like particularly, like I said, when they fall a little bit. You don't have many canceled. You haven't drafted a lot. Andrew, dude, is a magnet for those damn plague drafters. Yeah, and well, and that is, and look, I'm doing much more. Last year, I probably did 85% of all my drafts slow. This year, it's going to be more balanced, not 50-50. I'll do more slow than fast, but you know, you do run more of a risk with more when you do like only fast drafts or mainly fast drafts. Huhames, exactly, making same kind of point. And probably did it more succinctly and better than I did. Yeah, and no, I think there's ways for elites. I just don't like I've pointed out, like, yes, you're starting less receivers, so I do think you can catch up for, catching up on those first rounders, but I think even in general, like Bowers and McBride go a little high in regular drafts. So in a format where they're going to score a lower percentage of points for my roster, I'm even less inclined to take them ahead of like the Higgins, the Rashee Rices, the Lad McConkeys, the AJ Browns. Like, those are guys who I think are real, guys who are going to get, average 15 plus fantasy points, or at least have the upside for it. Tight end, again, outside of that Kelsey year, and ironically Darren Waller a couple years ago, and Andrews before, it's just tough for a tight end to do. It really is. Last year you had 3 really good tight end years: Kittle, McBride, Bowers. None of them came close to averaging 12 fantasy points. All right. Tumsky, I like fast. I think people make more mistakes. I agree, but I also think outdrafts better. I think I do fine on both, but I did have, like I said, probably 80-85% of mine were slow last year and had very successful advance rates. I don't think that's the only reason by any stretch, but yeah, I'm fine to both. I don't mind managing slows, but I know it's not for everyone. Dirty P, good seeing you. I find that it gets sniped more in slows than fast by a lot. I mean, I agree with that. I don't think, like, the Burrow push, I don't think happens near as much in slow drafts as fast drafts. Other things where you're like, oh, I can push this guy back. I don't think that happens as much. I think people just, sometimes they just see the value and they're like, oh no, I'm going to take, this guy's already 6 spots past ADP. I'm not going to let him fall another 6 spots. I have 90% rushing on fast draft. Your quarterback, your team stacks, Slow drafters talk themselves into hijacking you with the extra click. Yeah, 13 drafts. No, I mean, I think if you're a good sound drafter, there's definitely advantage in fast drafts as well. Yeah, with the extra clock. So before I get in the next draft, I do think this is a good point. This is the issue. This is my other issue with regular. And when Megan and I talk more about like 3 tight end builds in regular and, just mid to late round tight ends, because early on, the McBrides, the Kittles, the Bowers, they aren't projecting more points than the receivers that they're being drafted around, much less the running backs that are being drafted around, of course, not the quarterbacks. So when you get to the mid tier, receivers really start to dried up, and even running backs dried up. We're now drafting number 2 backs or some, very either conditional backs or just some situations like the Dallas situation, Jaguar situation, we don't feel great about. And there, the tight ends are still projecting not far off, whether it's Mark Andrews, Jake Ferguson, Goddard, even Evan Ingram, just pick your cup of tea. And the receivers in that range are, I mean, Marvin Mims. He started to slide down now, but him and Evan Ingram go within, 15, 20 picks of each other. And I'm going to take Evan Ingram every single day, just from I think there's a real chance he outscores Marvin Mims this year and definitely should get more playing time and more targets. But just from a positional standpoint, of course, I think he adds more value. And that just goes down the board. And, this is where the Jonnu Freiermuth thing hurts both of them a little bit. Again, I don't think either are dead. But, guys like Ertz, guys like Gesicki, guys like Hunter Henry, guys like Bretton Strange, even, you can make cases for like the Kate Ottens and even some guys really late, but those guys are absolutely out projecting most of the wide receivers going in that range. Maybe sure a guy like who I'm high on, like Adam Thielen or Cedric Tillman, if they kind of get the one role or the number two role in Thielen's case, they can outscore some of those tight ends. But if not, odds are Mike Gesicki, if he gets more than 2 touchdowns this year, I think he's going to probably outscore Quentin Johnston. Now, could Quentin Johnston still be the right guy in the right build? Absolutely. But just that's the way I look at it. So I do agree, like with Paul's overall point here. And in this, it's a little different. And part of my issue is with what you say about the round 19 or 20 receivers. Not many starting tight ends last that time. Like I think Theo Johnson just lasted to the 20th round, but rarely do you see a starting tight end. A lot of times it's like the Noah Grays, Cole Kmet's, that kind of stuff. And those tight ends, I don't think project better than the receivers in that range. But in terms of the wide receivers, when we're talking now solely Superflex, we're talking about the tight ends in that 14th, 15th, 16th round. Yeah, I do think those tight ends project better because they've been pushed down a little bit more and than some of the wide receivers. So that's why I do like hitting, sometimes I hit 3 in that range for sure. I've gone 3 tight ends in a row, like rounds 14, 15, 16, that kind of stuff. Dirty P, nice. Good to see. I'm 10 drafts away, so I will be getting there soon. I'm competing with your, So don't totally disagree with you. And there, that's why the first draft I did go 3 tight ends. It's just not as priority. Like in that draft, I had Jatavion Sanders. It was somewhat because of the stack. I had Mark Andrews and Ertz, I think. And the chance that he's getting there above one of those 2 guys, I think are pretty small. There might be a week where he adds a couple more points, particularly on one of their bye weeks where the other guy just doesn't have a good week. So there's ways that he can pay off. And yeah, it's a 19th, 20th round pick. Like if it hits my lineup one time, I'm happy. Or if it's just insurance, that's why I took Marcus Mariota. If he doesn't play, he's never hitting my lineup. But if he does play, that's massive insurance. So I don't mind that at all. And again, if you're drafting smart, drafting well, you can build any which way. Hames, I'm right there with you. Ola, Big Draft Energy, just good seeing you. I saw you joined. I joined your drafters chat for a bit. We'll get another draft shortly. Definitely follow if you're doing drafters, which hopefully you are. It's just like Marathon, full point PPR. They do have some great bonuses for the big contest, their flagship. They already filled 1 mini. They're going to do another one. They're also going to be doing a Superflex soon. Big Draft Energy is just crushing and doing drafts, I think, just about every day. You can find them on YouTube, find them on Twitter. Does great content. And Paul, you're welcome. Always appreciate talking about it. And again, I don't think you're wrong. I think your perspective is very viable and right as well. It's just if I need a tiebreak and I want like an extra quarterback or an extra running back, that's typically where I go. Keenan Allen was kind of the exception. I really was going to stop at 6. So I was debating adding the 3rd tight end there. But I do think Keenan Allen has that exception where if he gets in the right thing, it's just massive value. All right, so I'll do a 3rd draft. Let me know in the comments, do you want a Pitbull, another puppy Superflex? What's everyone feeling? No, and a limb. Good stuff. 5. The one was there 198. Yeah, no, and that is the thing. Like, if somebody, if you had like 100 guys just go out there and enter 150, to just mass it, yeah, these numbers would jump very quickly. So I agree with Dirty P's point. Like, these kind of things can fill very quickly. Latomsky mentions an limb. I will do an limb if that's what everyone wants. Let me know. Let me know if anyone else has any preferences. Give it another couple minutes. Yeah. Overall, well, I wrote up content for the elim. I'm going to do less eliminators than probably any other format on Underdog. Well, I think it's fun and offer crazy sweats. It's definitely not the greatest ROI tournament. And yeah, I was in the finals of the Eliminator last year. I wish they would have kept that format and done this head-to-head one differently and just call it a different name. That would have been my preference, because I think the regular Eliminator format just allowed you to have more equity for longer. But I'll do some elim. I think I've done like 9 so far, 8 or 9 so far. So I'm going to probably do like 30 of those this year, maybe up to 50, but definitely not one I'm going to even come close to maxing. So, all right. Well, if the limb is what people want, we'll do one. Let's check it out real quick. Still the 20-second option. I'll do the 20-second option in a second. I've done 9 so far, so this would be my 10th. It's about 29% filled. Definitely fun if you get that incredible run. So with no other comments in the chat, I will do an elim. And I'll do some BBMs down the stretch as well, Paul, but just so you mentioned a limb or BBM, I'll probably do a limb right now, since both you and Latomsky mentioned that. Yeah, I still don't think I'm going to end up maxing the BBM. I'll get higher than I did last year, but might be more around like 75, maybe 100 max. Just too many other contests I went more in. But yeah. All right. I will do an elim, and I bring it up on my phone. Okay. I will count down starting now. Entering in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter. Hope you guys get in there with me, and we'll bring it up on. Okay, it's working. Hopefully it's actually entering, and hopefully it's not everyone gets in the pre-flow again. Uh-oh. What's going on? Okay, finally 5 more to start. So still some time to get in. Hopefully you didn't have anyone jump the gun. Let's see. Can I finally get in? Yes, here we go. So Eliminator, I do have my rankings up. I have them up on the Fanspeak Substack. I'm definitely more partial to hitting running back early and often for the elim. Elite quarterback, I think, plays better. Don't love that the 2 top quarterbacks have week 7 buys. So if you do kind of get there early and start gaining the cash, then you lose your quarterback pretty soon. That, isn't my favorite. let me get Chad up while we're waiting. Third piece, sidekick gloves, 4 tight ends. I've seen them do it, even with an Andrews. That I don't get, particularly in Superflex. I just don't think, especially if you have like an Andrews type. And if you waited and you're taking like 4, I don't know, like Hunter Henry, Kate Otten, Chiga Konkwo, and Elijah Arroyo. Okay, maybe. But yeah, it's interesting. Chad in the chat, GM. Wish I could get in this one. Sorry. So you can make it, but glad you jumped in chat. Yeah, no, I wasn't able to join your stream this morning, but Chad always doing the great morning streams. Really, really adding a lot. Particularly if you're on the East Coast and you're up early, very, very nice. So let's see, we got it's Kelly in the 1, Latumsky in the 3. I'm in the 4. Off the Schneid, is he streaming? Did we get a cross stream going? In the 9, Legion in the 10. So somebody let me know if Off the Schneid's streaming. I appreciate that. And obviously, I always follow Off the Schneid. He does great content as well. Cody, over there, he and I was on his 8-hour, or was it 12-hour stream when he celebrated 500. That was a lot of fun. I need to get him on one of these shows. We have some definitely differences in opinion. I know he's a little bit more 0RB than I am, but I really appreciate his takes and the way he approaches thinking about things and his viewpoint. And he was on Friends with Best Ball with Meg a couple weeks ago. So let's see here. I'll take Barkley. I did consider maybe CMC, but Barkley, his touches are just so. How's it going, Cody? Nice. I didn't know if we got a cross stream going. Those are always interesting and fun. But yeah, appreciate you jumping in and saying hi and joining the Elim. I know you're higher in the Elim than me. I think you said you want to maybe max it. I don't know if you heard earlier. I don't think I'm going to go that high. I do like it. I wish they would have kept the old Eliminator format and done this head-to-head, different name, different style, whatever you want to call it. Meg even mentioned, because I think Josh McCaffrey had something about doing a head-to-head and calling it the boxer because you're head-to-head. That would have been fun for sure. Who Hames up? Bindles is in chat. GM. Good seeing you, Bindles. Caught part of your show, ballsy show the other night with PPR Tyler, or I guess it was last night. Tonight's are running together. That was a good show. Definitely Candyman. Absolutely. I mean, all the clips ready for PPR Tyler. Let's see. Off the Schneid, getting Puka with the first, Legion with the chain. Let me pull up the board. And we are back up in a few picks. I will start running back. Running back depends on what comes back to me. Obviously, running backs get pulled up. Henry and Chain going in the first. Along with Gentine and McCaffrey, it's not like any of those fell out. So we'll see what's there. I also don't mind a lot of times. Like ladder, Brian Thomas. Those are easy calls. Not one to totally team stack in this. I don't think it's terrible when it's a great offense, but like the Eagles, that's just not my favorite thing to do. Because if they just have a week where it's a field goal fest or something like that, you just end up, you're just totally dead at that point. I'm going to go Lad. I think we're going to see his target share go up.
he just showed as the season wore on how good he can be in the playoff game. And they got, they lost, of course, but he just absolutely dominated. So what's up, brother? Yeah, the clips were definitely flowing. Over under 1/2 streamers who create, just streams and you can get the extra edge in their draft. No, I mean, all these guys, are doing it, pretty much doing it on their own. But yeah, I'm always happy to join drafts, and hopefully they see it as a plus EV. No, I enjoy talking football. I enjoy drafting. And yes, that's right. Happy Canada Day. It's Big Draft Energy was in here earlier. Bindles, who's in Canada now, and of course, off the Schneid. I'm going to go. I like Elite, but getting Higgins back feels very fun. Saquon, Lad, Higgins start. I'm very happy with that. I might not get one of the big elites. Obviously, maybe I get Burrow. If Hurts comes all the way back, not expecting it, but would happily do that. Yeah, that would have been the perfect one to be called a boxer. Is this head-to-head eliminator? I do think Underdog missed the opportunity there for the chef's kiss of dog names. And yeah, I mean, I think the old format was fun and a bit more interesting, but yeah, this new format is going to have some crazy head-to-head weeks. A lot of discussion on like socials, Twitter, etc. Hopefully, I thought I heard some talk that Underdog is going to try and make the experience better for these head-to-heads. Not sure exactly what they have planned or anything, so I haven't heard anything more on that. It might have just been idle speculation, but I think that would be a fun thing to do if, just kind of show it like a tournament, particularly after you get to like the 7th through 7 weeks and there's, 1,000 teams left or whatever it is. Like, have this look like a tournament. I think would be really fun. Not that you know who you'd play next. You're always getting reseeded theoretically, but no. Who aims? I don't think so. No, I had to jump out during your last draft to grab some dinner and get ready for this. So if you want to share with the class, happy to talk about it. If you want to share in chat or what, but no, I like some different ideas and formats and things of that nature. We will take Kamara for second running back. Saquon, Kamara, Vlad, Higgins. There, I'm definitely taking a running back over another receiver here. And just your average points, your upside points are higher than I feel like these kind of receivers. Not that was the top priority, but all having buys week 9 or later. I feel good. I do think it's a bit of a knock to have the buy too early. You just don't want to have too many. Like if you have like 2 or 3 week 5 buys or week 6 buys, like, oh, that would just be the worst to have your team go just because you have 3 guys off. So I'm not going to try any like fancy Burrow push here. Just get my quarterback, get my guy. Off the street, I can tell you, like Burrow is as legit as it comes. I talked about it earlier when I was doing Superflex. Like
Burrow's 3 healthy seasons, he's finished as quarterback 10, quarterback 3, quarterback 4. I'm happy to take that at 52 in this kind of format, especially a part of the stack. Basically, it's an eliminator back to old style, but you don't play your pod after you draft your team and splits everyone into draft position. Oh, that's interesting. That'd be very interesting to see who's the best at certain draft positions. Yeah, no, Latomsky, I would love that. And I think, Hope or somebody mentioned that maybe it's still an option. I'd love it. I think that would be great. Even if it was a mini, like a $5 one, whatever. Then you play limb style, who drafted in the same hole, have week 16 finals versus draft position, then 12-person final. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a fun thing to do. I don't know what it is, but I know Hayden on one of his most recent shows, Hayden and Josh, said that he's been talking to the draft team about a new idea that he hopes gets, they try out later this summer. So it's something in the works. Not sure if it'll get done or not. And hopefully it's not dependent on all this, California and political BS that's out there right now. But I hope they just keep seeing the growth and upside of these tournaments and best ball. So up in 7 picks. Let's see, we got Legion and Off the Schneid back-to-back coming up. They both went with one of the elites, which, I think is definitely a positive thing to do. There's absolutely other ways to catch up, but having one of those elite guys who every week you feel good in your head-to-head matchup that you're going to win it, that's pretty nice. Yeah, that is a very fun idea. So up in 2. All right, especially with Junkins being taken, it's just running backs getting thin, and this guy only having one. I'm going to take a third starter. Yeah, JT best ball, it is frustrating, like some of these things. No, it is. Yeah, the casinos on the reservations are absolutely pushing for all that, and it's one of the reasons why it took so long for like Florida to prove like DFS and sports betting and stuff like that. I don't even know if they have sports betting, but it's because of there were a couple casinos that have just a ton of clout and power. I think, like I'm in Virginia, Meg's in Maryland. Virginia got sports betting like 2 years before Maryland. Similar, Maryland has casinos, Virginia doesn't. So it's unfortunate because I think there's obviously a place for both going to a casino and then doing it online, and especially things like, this best ball, which isn't even anything close to sports betting or casino game. It just can't be replicated. Yeah, I'm gonna go Ricky. I think especially with the Ayuk news early on. I mean, I like Ricky overall, Ricky Pearsall overall, but especially with the Ayuk news and in this format, like early on, I think he could be a massive thing. Wait, let me check out who he's great fun things. Like if you're the 101, do you take Chase every time? Yeah, no, absolutely. You want to, and whether it's at the 1 or then it's at the 2, instead of doing like McBride, Higgins, Chase Brown, Marvin Harrison, you pull up like Josh Allen, like get a Chase Josh Allen or something crazy. So yeah. Oh, Pierre Garcon. Yep. No, absolutely remember him with particularly the RG3 breakout year.
Family in my city too. The Brown family in Churchill Downs and like to keep the competition. But yeah, that's those types of things that just so unfortunate and annoying. And we see this on, drafters. I know you can't, I believe Pennsylvania, you can't draft in, you can, other things. And that's the other thing is these states have so many like taxes and fees that these, providers and hoops they have to go through, that it costs so much for these sites. Because they're still, I don't know if he's still there, but I'm friends with Chad Candles in real life, and right as the Little Board 2 dropped and BBM and all that open, he was out in Hawaii and couldn't draft, and it's just why. Like that's my thing. And I know Canada has some issues as well. I thought isn't in Ontario there's an issue in Ontario? Yeah, okay. Thank you for clarifying. I was like, I knew there was something. Yep. Yeah. No, the casinos there, and obviously they are the state essentially, but still, it is unfortunate you can't do the drafts there, and DFS and other things like that. Quarterbacks are falling. I will just take Baker. Stacking is not as important. I love Burrow Baker. If I, maybe I'll tack on Mbuka coming up. Actually, Mbuka went right before. I missed that. That's the problem with focusing on chat. My bad there. I'm sure that guy really thought he was going to get Mbuka or Baker back. But stacking isn't as important. Just having top quarterback scores. I'm getting 2 guys who were top 5 in quarterbacks last year. So I'm okay with that. Let's see, I have a pick and then I'll go back to chat. So I would just take my guy Cam Scattaboo. Well, typically I not avoid, but I'm a little more down on rookies. I think Caleb Johnson is the bell cow there. I think Cam Scattaboo can be the bell cow there from the jump. TD, Mr. Mufasa, good seeing you. Thanks for joining us. All DFS, yeah. Yeah, Cody, I know what you mean. Odunze has been falling, and as far as I know, nothing has changed in that department. Yeah, JT, I think you'd have to be okay for a lot colder weather. That's why we're all moving in and off the Schneids. T.Y. Hilton, another great Colts receiver. Sladen, good seeing you. Thanks for joining the chat. There's 2 guys at the cross again into Providence politics. I love it. Coldest I've seen with my own eyes was negative 62. In all honesty, anything after negative 30 is the same. I don't know if that's Fahrenheit, I'm hoping, not Celsius. Either way, that sounds beyond awful. And no, thank you. Just took Mullins, Sharon, Superflex. All right. Living large. No, and look, I know there was some positive coach buzz about Mullins and doesn't have a lot of competition in front of him to be the backup. Baker's just a bet on him doing 4 to 5K yards of volume. You only really use when trying to predict targets from. Yeah. And like if I get Otten at value, I'll tack him on. Shard White at value, I'll tack him on. In my head, I thought, Mbuka will probably be there when I come back in a couple of picks. He wasn't. And I was going to say, actually, I might like Mbuka the best in this format because early season, I think Godwin, even if he's active,
which it generally sounds like he will be and healthy, unlike the Ayuk situation. Like, I would be surprised if he's a 60, 70% player and Mbuka is just getting more snaps, more work. And I think Mbuka, out of every receiver in this draft, even Travis Hunter, is the most NFL-ready receiver. So I actually like him in this format probably the best. Other formats where I worry about his playoff role, I'm a bit more concerned. We will go Sharp Bateman. Definitely don't need the double stack Chargers, and even if I can push Herbert back, I already have 2 quarterbacks. Still might take a third, but probably not here. I was hoping for a little better tight end. Might pull Tucker Kraft up if he's still there. Tyler Warren. Like them a little bit more. Could go another running back, but I have 4 already that I feel good about. Definitely not taking Jonnu at this current ADP. I moved him down considerably. Don't love Njoku as much, just even though early on he's probably fine. Just I worry about the Browns' implosion. Yeah, there are quarterbacks here. That's nice. Usually quarterbacks, I feel, go a little quicker in this. It's been about a week since I've done a limb, so. I will take Tucker Kraft. I'll probably look for like a 3-5-7-3 type build. I think being pretty steady is good. Potentially would look to, handcuff like Saquon with Will Shipley. I feel good enough about these running backs. It's not a priority for me. Yeah, no, that's a way to do it as well. You get some just correlation, and sometimes Baker's just the guy you need. I mean, it was a big board, so pre-draft contest, but I took an unstacked Baker, and that's why I finished 4th. Macklin, Dwayne, yeah. Chiefs wide receivers in that time were typically not good. I don't have it loaded. I do have BBO, but I don't have it loaded. You know me so well, Mike. Was audio only putting the kid to bed? Is Tez Johnson at reasonable around 18 click BBM Pitbull? I'm like Tez Johnson. I'm not taking him since his draft capital went down so much. I took him a little bit in the big board, but I've not taken him at all. Where is he even going in the limb? I'm guessing totally dust in this. Yeah, Tez Johnson. No ADP, never a good sign. The problem with that is they still have McMillan. Even if you were thinking Godwin is starting slow, like I think Mbuka and McMillan, they got it covered. And it's not like Ayuk I think is going to miss 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe more. Like I don't think Godwin's missing that time. I just think he might play 60% snaps. John Baldwin, former Pitt receiver. Let's see here. I will go Dallas Goedert for a second tight end. Little, top offense correlation. Like I said, I don't overstack offenses, but Adam, I think there is Adam, thanks for joining us.
Now, I think there's a word where Njoku gets traded to a contender this season. Last year was contract, I believe. Yes, it is. The last year was contract, or they definitely have an out after this year. They could trade him, particularly, again, in this format, though, probably won't help them because by that time, trade deadline is week 9 or 10 or whatever it is. So, but in other formats, maybe that helps save your shares. Latumsky takes Eckler. That would have been my pick. So we will go. We'll go Cedric Tillman. Again, don't love Browns, but I do like Tillman. I think his ADP is just so fair. You look at the, like 4 games when after Cooper got traded, and the first one, Winston barely only played at the very end because it was Watson and DTR. And Tillman actually had more targets, better yards per route run, more yards, more touchdowns than Judy in those games. Of course, Judy, Tillman gets hurt, doesn't come back. Judy just dominates down the stretch, including that crazy revenge game against the Broncos, which was insane given how good the Broncos defense was. But I just think we're treating this as a situation where I've used this comparison before. We're treating it like it's DK Metcalf versus Calvin Austin. I mean, the reality of this could be much closer to like Josh Downs and Michael Pittman situation where both guys are fairly close to each other, and you could make a case for either one being the true one. So that's why I feel like Tillman is just such a good value where he's going. And at least in this format, early on, I am confident Flacco gets, 6 to 8 weeks. Jonnu really falling. If he didn't have the same buy as Tucker Kraft now, I would have absolutely be considering him in a few spots. I think he's better in this format as well because it's not so much ceiling as floor. I think his floor remains pretty solid, him and Fryermuth. As mentioned before, you looked just a couple years ago at Arthur Smith's deployment with Pitts and Jonnu, with Drake London being the alpha receiver. Both were very fine and both were very capable. Really hitting this week 5 buy range. Not great, Bob. We will pull up Zach Ertz for that reason because I want another tight end. Could have waited for Otten, but he's the same buy as Goddard, so I like spraying it out. If I'm lucky enough to get to week 9, I don't want to only be relying on one tight end if I don't have to. Let's mop in a couple picks. What is a comfortable percentage draft for your top 5 at each position? Like 30 plus or more towards the high teens. When you say top 5 at each position, you mean my top 5 drafted players, not like the Chase, Lamb, Jefferson types, I assume. For me, I'm going to mainly max my percentages at 30, maybe 35 if they're a little later. I think the later they're drafted, the better it can be. Like if I'm 35% Adam Thielen or 35% Slayton, I don't think that's a killer. Scatterboo was kind of on that cusp. Probably want to be around 30% him. Let's see. I will. No stack, but I will take Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is actually really good for this format as well. Last year with the Jets, he, I believe, had 11 games where he was a quarterback, like a QB1, quarterback 1 through 12. And, just gives me consistent floor. So really good backup for, Burrow and Baker for their bye weeks, for any game that they might have a down week. I mean, last year Burrow started really slow and, Baker would have a couple down weeks here or there. So he just helps increase my floor. But I think I answered your question, Mike. Let me know if that makes sense. 30%, like 30 plus or more towards the high teens. So yeah, having a couple guys in that 30-ish range, I'm fine with. Most guys in the mid 20s. See how long have you been analyzing the draft? And has there been a receiver that you knew was going to be absolutely dominant that didn't have highly rated? So I've been covering the draft for Fanspeak since 2012. The picture on the page for this is me actually interviewing Kevin Zeitler at the Senior Bowl. I did the Senior Bowl from 2012 to 2020. Haven't gone back since the pandemic, and did like 3 years at the East West Shrine Game when it was down in Florida as well in that mix. I want to say 13, 14, 15. That sounds right. Don't quote me on that. But I've always kind of followed along the draft. Actually, in college, my roommate, his dad had a connection in New York, and we went to the draft in 04 and 05. So I got to see the Eli draft, and then the Rodgers fall the next year, Alex Smith going 1 overall. So I actually got to see those first rounds in person. That was fun. But yeah, I've always been into the draft. I'll answer the second part of your question soon when I can make a pick. So definitely don't need Fryermuth. We'll take probably a receiver here. Not my favorite guy by any stretch, but Michael Wilson, unless Keenan Allen comes on down, it's going to be on the field. And if you're on the field, you can have some floor weeks, not much in terms of spike weeks, but increasing my floor, I think, is important in this type of tournament. You never want it to be you're just drafting only spike week guys and they all just dud out at the same time. And so you're a really good team in total overall points, but because they all just had a 5-point game, and yes, it absolutely happens. So just something, that's the way I like to build this. Have a mix of upside and floor. I feel really good about my wide receiver room and running back room for that matter. Going back to the running back situation. I took him in another draft. I'm going to take Jerome Ford. I think early on, he could have more of a role, more of a usage. This is probably the format I like him the best in. Maybe later in the year, Sampson overtakes him. But Ford has been good. It was kind of surprising they took 2 running backs. So, Tim, let me answer the second part of your question. Receiver that I knew was going to be absolutely dominant that most people didn't have highly rated. So I definitely was very high on Terry McLaurin. I can't say that I would have predicted that he would have 1,000 yards every single year to start his career. But I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and I saw the leadership qualities. I saw the way he ran routes. I saw that he had good speed, good size. And I thought he was a fantastic, day 2 selection. Trying to think, I'm sure there are others. I mean, I was super bullish on Lab McConkey. I can't believe that, like Leggett and some other guys went ahead of him in the draft last year. And that's why I was super bullish on taking him in drafts a year ago. Trying to think of, sure there's others, older prospects. Right now, trying to go back a ways. No one in particular is jumping out to me. I'm sure if I thought about it more, I could have a better answer for you. So sorry about that, Tim. And I am behind in chat, so let me catch up. You're going to take Tillman. Thought his ADP was still suppressed in this 20. He might fall. You're the only person I was worried about. No worries, Tim. Sorry I don't have a better answer for you. If you feel strongly, it isn't a bad thing to do 30%. So, I guess what I would say is I don't want like 8 guys after that range that I'm 30% on. If I'm like, pick my spots, 3 or 4 guys, yeah, then I'm okay with it. I might have like a Gesicki, particularly now with the Freiermuth Jonnu thing. Like some of those tight ends, they're still there. So yeah, no, we've been covering the draft. We're covering football. We would cover like NBA draft, NHL draft. Yeah, we've been doing that since 2012. Yeah, there you go. 100% loving all the lad support. So I actually feel my receivers are good enough. I'm going to take a sixth running back. My buys don't have any overlap. So I'm always going to have 5 receivers. And in my book, ideally, I'm covering only 3 spots with those receivers. If at times I need to cover a 4th spot, I think I have enough firepower here. But with not having the buy overlap, I thought it would be interesting to take another running back who I think gets usage, especially early on. Could have gone either way. Oh, yeah. I mean, Clorin had terrible quarterback play before Daniel. So how's everyone feel? Anyone? I will run a 4th draft. Probably not another eliminator, but I would be good with a puppy or puppy superflex or a Pitbull. I need to finish both of those. So I do want to prioritize those a bit. Is anyone interested in me running a 4th draft, wanting to jump in, or just happy to stay and watch? If so, I will keep drafting, keep talking for another draft. So let me know in chat. I mean, that's definitely Meg's take for Scattaboo. Like, I think she's appalled. I think I'm at like 34% Scattaboo, and she's appalled at me. Sladen, I'll do a pup. Tim, let's ride. Chad, I'll hop in on Pitbull. Puppy Superflex would be awesome. All right. Sorry, Chad. I will go with the 2 for a 20-second Pitbull. Looks like you're already in, so probably won't even be able to join you. What about Cup at the Super Bowl? Senior Bowl. Oh, and that's Willie Pops. That is, you weren't in our stream last week, Sibling Showdown. This is our father, Willie Pops, joining the chat. Yeah, Cup at the Senior Bowl. He was that is a good call out. He was an awesome receiver at the Senior Bowl. You just saw his route running ability. I loved him in the 3rd round there. I know there's other guys like 3rd, 4th rounders who just really impressed me at the Senior Bowl, or just in the draft process, that I was a big fan of. I was very high on Nico Collins. This was after, I was going to the Senior Bowl because COVID and all that. I love Nico Collins coming out. Do I think, would I have said he's going to be a top 10 receiver in this league? No, but I thought he's a starter. I think he's a good starting receiver. So that's another one that I was definitely more bullish on. I'm going to do a puppy superflex. I will enter it from my phone. Let's see here. We're puppy superflex, 88% full, 20-second clock. I will enter it, counting down, starting now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, enter. Hopefully my phone will automatically fill. For whatever reason, when I've been jumping in my phone, it is taking a little longer than I would expect to load. Not sure if it's my Underdog or what. Yeah, Cup went to Eastern Washington, I believe. Yep. All right, 5 more to start for the puppy superflex. Finally got in.
So sorry if anyone got in the pre-flow. Four more to start. 3, 2. We are going to be filling in a second. Slayton, hope you were able to get back in. Sorry about that, Slayton. Cup was a third rounder. No, I was very blessed to see a lot of great players. Aaron Donald, his year, I interviewed him 3 different times. One in a press conference before the game, a week during the game, one after practice, in a press conference before the game, and after the game. Just a great guy, like really great guy. You could just see his quickness, his ability. Nobody could block him. He was going to be insane. He was definitely one of my favorite players. But there's plenty of guys still playing, like Morgan Moses, one of the best interviews I ever did. He, UVA player, the entire time, I must have talked to him 20 minutes at a media session, and we just talked, and he just tremendous guy. And the entire time he just wanted to praise his teammates. And I was very happy when Washington drafted him. Became a starter for Washington, other teams around the league. I think he's a good fit for young quarterback like Drake May. And he would just talk about his other teammates. Like, I think it was Brent Urban that year. And he would just hype up his guys. And it's just really cool. And you could just see his leadership qualities and just the type of guy that he was. Okay, let's see. Steveospeak. I'm at the 8th spot. Fortunately, I don't think he's in chat, but we have last year's BBM winner in the 10th spot. So right behind me. If anyone else got in here, sorry for jumping the gun early. I'm guessing there may be some others in the pre-flow. Sorry about that. Not sure why it took me so long. Get to see his rookies. Yeah, I was very lucky to see a lot of great guys. Yeah, he's in this one also. He's multi-tabling, so maybe we're both going to get some edge on him. So back in the Superflex streets. Need to reset my brain. Because quarterbacks 1 through 6, I will take either Barkley or Bijan. I will go Barkley. Morgan Moses is the Patriots right tackle this year. What's going on, Justin? Glad to see you. I'm sure you're ready for Jeopardy tomorrow. We have Jeopardy tomorrow, and I believe it's 4 p.m. We have Pete Overzet versus Neil Orfield. So 2 of the top streamers, guys who've been in these streets for years, doing fantasy on multiple platforms for years. So we'll be really interested to see them both jump into the Jeopardy streets tomorrow. So no more quarterbacks go out to the first 6. I like that. That benefits me, I feel like. So to me, Baker's just an easy snap call if he comes back. Probably more looking like a Bo Nix, Kyler, Justin Fields. I'm happy with starting with any of those guys, to be honest. Let's see. 1 pick away. Still no quarterback coming back. There goes Baker. I'll lean into my ranks and go Kyler. One knock I have with Kyler is if we do worry about buys, there's a lot of week 8 buys. So that is a slight knock in this kind of situation. When Kyler's like my number 2 quarterback, I know it's a different buy. Like say I went Mahomes and Kyler or something like that. or I was at the turn and did Baker Kyler. Then I feel a little bit better about it. But just one thing that was maybe leaning Knicks there. Hope to see your exposures posted once your super flex slow is complete. Yeah, I mean, I'll happily post my my exposures. Even when I can do it now, but even when these fasts are done, and 20, some of the slows I'm sure will be finished in the next couple of days, but then I will have the rest needing to be filled. Let's see, what am I at? And how many completed? Let me bring up another thing. Yeah, no, I'm sure Vrabel does big time, and I think Vrabel is a big get for the Patriots. Wow, I didn't see that, Paul. That's crazy. I didn't realize he didn't enter a single one the year before. That is interesting. And I know I remember at BBMD, I can't pronounce what his name is, but LeGroux 50 or whatever. He had the team that won, because I don't know if he maxed, but he had a ton of teams and he had a number like top finishes. I think he had like 3 top 500 finishes, something like that. But the team that won in terms of the regular season through the regular first 14 weeks was maybe like, and he had a really good advance rate, but it was maybe like his 15th or 16th highest point total team. So just that team was the one that got through the pods and got there to the finals and obviously had the best finals. I will go Herbert here. I do like JT, and I have a decent clip of him in this, but it is super flex. I'm going to prioritize quarterback. Drake May would have been so nice coming back to me. Let's see. I've completed, this will be my 120th completed super flex. I'm completed 119 so far. I think I've seen him in there as well. Hames. No, I mean, it clearly, obviously, he's doing it a lot more now with good reason. I've seen him in multiple, particularly my super flex drafts. Let's see, anything great coming back to me? Not really. ADP wise, Powers at 41. I'm just not loving it. Maybe if I had started 3 quarterbacks. I will go the McConkey stack. I definitely want another quarterback soon, but McConkey feels nice with the stack. He advanced 43. Yeah, I didn't think he maxed it, but I knew he advanced a very high number. 33 advance rate, which is very good, obviously. 4 semifinals and 1 finals. Yeah, I think last year I did 57, advanced 19. So I think it was like 31% advance rate, whatever that was. I got 2 to the semifinals. I think it was 2, and just neither one of those got home. And that's the tough thing with BBM. So I don't knock anyone for wanting to max or doing it. Like, I think it's a fun tournament when you can win, a couple $1 million, but those big prizes. But boy, those pods are tough. And I am going to be more partial to sprint and marathon. I just think it rewards better drafting. Sure, some injury teams will get killed that way, I'm not going to compete for $1 million in those. And I don't know if I'll max, but I'm going to have a good number of teams in both of those as well, just because I think your ROI is a little better. Marathon's actually interesting. Megan and I talked about, we did a marathon strategy show about a week ago. And so in BBM or puppies, Superflex puppy, 16.7%, 1 and 2 of your teams are going to finish in the money. So you get your money back, right? So in marathon, and that's actually one issue with the eliminator, it's only 12.5% of teams finish getting their money back or gain any money back. In eliminator, or I'm sorry, in marathon, it's slightly down, not as down as 12.5, it's 16%, but anyone doubles their money. It's 15 to enter, 30 is the minimum prize. So while slightly less get their money back, way more get their money back, or like double their money in that format. So it's just an interesting concept to keep in mind. Quarterbacks come back to us. Fortunately, they're all week 8 buys. I'm not going to mind it too much. I will take Stafford. I think the value is there. I'll get another quarterback later. So let's see. He goes double quarterback, double receiver. Not even with the stack, which is the other reason it's tough to, like, some of the elite receivers. Part of the other issue is like Lamb is like impossible to stack. Like where Lamb goes compared to where Dak goes, you're just pretty much never going to stack them. Sometimes you can stack Jefferson, but it's not easy. So all the other quarterbacks go quickly. If Adams is there, he is my clear pick. So we will see what Mets let's go takes. So I get Adams. So yeah, I like that. And Harrison would have been a stack option, but I just prefer Adams to Harrison, to be honest. So I know not everyone is into marathon and sprint, but if you're in the comments, what do you guys think about those tournaments, and your value there with the slightly different payout structure, or in this case of the sprint, kind of combining all the playoff weeks together. What's everyone else feeling? I think, both Meg and I are pretty high on them, but absolutely would love to hear feedback on what others value those kind of tournaments like. So, I know you're being hard on yourself, WP, but I don't think it, honestly, I'd be curious if you want to share like your advance rates from last year, or just, not that you have to, but I think if you're above, if you're advancing like 20% or more, which would be considered good, especially if it's like 25%, 30%, et cetera. I think you're going to do better in like marathons and sprints, because then, for instance, I mentioned I advanced 31% last year. And even if it was only 50-17, now the sprint was different price structure last year, so I didn't do any. But if I advanced 31% of 57 teams in the sprint this year versus the same in BBM, I think my ROI is just better. I'm up on a pick. I will take Montgomery. And just because even if I'm not getting that top prize, that 100K, like if I have a team, the problem with the pods is if I finish with the second best team, let's just even say I finished with the best team in my pod week 1, week 15, which is week 15, and then week 16, I have the second best team out of 16 teams. It's probably a really good team. And then maybe I just have that amazing team week 17, but I win. I guess you win 1,000 in that case. So that's not too bad, but let's say you finish 4th in your pod that week, but then week 15 and week 17, you just crush it. I don't even know if you still would get $500, but even if you do, like your chance, if that same scenario plays out, you are going to just earn more money. I feel like in a sprint. I will take Tyler Shuck here again. He's actually one of my highest quarterbacks just because I like having a fourth starting quarterback in this format, particularly when I do have two guys with the same bye. And I think the value there is fine, but and I get it's not for everyone. So I'll do a few, but I know I'm not sharp enough drafting nuts. I think it's so much of it is there structurally built, and yeah, you need some good player takes. You can't, bet on things that are, as unreasonable, particularly if you're doing mass volume. But I think, look, the guy who won the marathon last year, he didn't even know he was in the finals, or was it the sprint? I can't remember. His buddy had to tell him, and he only had like one entry, or maybe I can't remember the story, but I just think do you need a little luck going your way? Absolutely. But and Meg actually showed when she broke down her marathon team, she finished 135th, 138th, whatever it was. And it was a much bigger, it was like 150,000 entries last year. And she finished 138th overall, only did like 6 to 8 entries. I can't remember the exact number. And she had multiple duds on her team. Like the idea, like you have to hit everything right is just not entirely true. She had, as she put it down, I think she had five or 18 picks were basically duds, including like Roman Wilson, who truly did a stone zero. And Khalil Herbert was another one. I don't think he had a single usable week 4 last week, and still was able to finish really well. So I just would consider that in mind. And if it's not for you this year, just maybe consider it more and more. Like you said, maybe dip your toes in the water this year and build into it for the future. Let's see. I'm intrigued by the limb since it's new and not solved or optimal strategy. Not really playing the other non-traditional formats. First, thanks for joining us, Paulino89. Appreciate seeing you. I'm on the clock, so let me do that next. Not loving this. We will go. I'll go ETN. I do think he ends up kind of the 1A or 1B at worst on this team. So I don't mind him at that value. Him love Superflex. It's so much fun. Like Omaha card game. And yeah, I agree. Like if traditional BBM is, your Texas Hold'em, Superflex is like Omaha. Absolutely agree. Yeah, and so I know you said last year it didn't go what you wanted 16, but you got one through to the finals, and that's great. And that's the thing is, no, I mean congratulations, that's amazing. But I think it wasn't your year at draft how you want to draft, of course, but let's see what I want to do here. I will take my guy. Yeah, I'm going to take Ricky Pearsall. I think he's one of the safer guys here. Don't mind taking a third receiver. And so, that's what I'd say is, like you said, you have a lot of good teams that lack running back points. And if you feel like you're hitting it, you're identifying certain positions pretty well, I would kind of look at it and be like, okay, where was the gap? Like what did I miss here or there? Was it just bad luck? Was it just, whatever? And see about, were you just drafting the wrong kind of running backs? Because, like we all get excited about their running backs. I almost took Jalen Warren in the Superflex pick. But Warren is a guy that, the fantasy community loves more than I think Arthur Smith loves him. But he probably never has the upside to truly be the bell cow. If Najee had gone down, if Caleb goes down, I think it's a committee. last year it would have been Cordell Patterson. This year would probably be Warren and Gainwell, just kind of sharing that role. So he has value. He's going to have usable weeks, fantasy weeks, but you need a draft understanding that he's more likely like a flex, a fill-in, a floor play, and I just use him as an example, but that's kind of when zero RB hits, it's the guys who can fully take over big roles. Last year was like Zach Moss getting injured, Chase Brown taking over, Bucky Irving ascending above Rashard White, those kind of things. Total, if you take too many contingent plays and those plays just never end up hitting, then they're not going to pan out. And if you take too many guys who are just, floor plays, fill-ins, they're just not going to give you enough points to compete with the teams that have, even if they only have Barkley, you're just so behind the eight ball. So just things to consider. 5 more likes to 50 if we get there. Steve will draft a big dog team off screen. Yeah, I don't know if I'll do any big dogs, but I would absolutely appreciate getting us to 50 likes. Really appreciate everyone for joining in the chat. All the likes, all entering the drafts. I'm sorry nobody's able to get into this one outside of a BPM winner from last year. All right, I will go back to our guy Cam Scattaboo. Just an easy click here for me when I don't love, after Barkley, love the running backs here. Again, another guy I feel really great about the receivers, and of course 4 starting quarterbacks. No, 2 years ago, the guy did go 0 RB, and his first running back was Alexander Madison, which was a total dust, but he hit, but that was the most 0 of RB 0, 0 RB years of 0 RB years. I agree. Most years you are going to find, whether it's the CMCs up the top, Eckler a couple years ago when Pat Green won, whether it's like even Josh Jacobs, like, yes, people are like, oh, he's a 0 RB running back. Yeah, you could get him like the 6th, as you're in the 6th round that year, but there were other people who took Eckler and Josh Jacobs or McCaffrey and Josh Jacobs, and those teams are going to do better. Let's see, where are we at here? I am going to go Evan Ingram. Yeah. And, it's the same thing. Like I didn't have a ton of Chase Brown or Bucky. That's probably like 6% on Brown, 4% on Bucky. But Chubba was a guy, another 0 RB back that I did hit. J.K. Dobbins, I was high on. Dowdle, I was high on. And I had at least 15% on all those guys. I think Dobbins, I had like 20%. But they're my 4th back, my 5th back. So, like I agree with you. Like that is the kind of like how you can still pay off those guys and gain value. And I think the other thing, and I'll talk about it more in a second. Let me hit a couple more comments. Yes. Thank you so much, Tim. Really appreciate it. Always appreciate the support. And I love talking to you, talking with you guys, and going to be doing more and more of these streams. I think one thing also, just to your point, Joey P, is the last couple of years we've seen more quote unquote like 0 wide receivers. Like look at last year and the last couple of years, but like these mid round receivers are hitting more. Jamison Williams, Ladd McConkey, Khalil Shakir for where he was going, Brian Thomas Jr. For where he was going. Later guys, Adam Thielen back in the mix, McMillan. The year before, Nico Collins was going late. Tank Dell obviously going late. Puka being super late. Like everyone hypes on Kyron Williams being the late round RB, but Puka was the late round receiver, And I think we're seeing that a little bit more like last year, whether they were drafted or not. But Alec Pierce, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, these guys had very usable years. Slayton and Tolbert, 2 other guys, tons of usable production. Bateman is a tier break for me, so I'm going to take him here. And, just think you're finding more and more that where later receivers can give you enough usable weeks, including some spike weeks. I mean, I think he goes way too high in drafts, but let's not forget Marvin Mims was one of the guys you would have absolutely wanted last year for week 17. Adam Thielen being another one. Ricky Pearsall, another one. There was a time Pearsall was going like 12th round, but and when the winner got him, I think that's around where he took him. There's other times where he's going 15, 16, 17th round. So, I do think we should start to account that more and more mid to late receivers are hitting at a pretty high rate. Are they going to finish top 5? Probably not. So that's why like anchoring with a elite receiver in the first round or two, and then hitting running backs, elite quarterback can really pay off. But I just think we're not considering it enough. I'm not saying that's my optimal strategy or anything like that, but I think people just think it's totally impossible. I'm going to take Garendo here. Like having shares of him. I do think he's a bit more of a contingent play, but as my 5th running back, absolutely love that value. Anytime CMC misses, he'll probably have some usable weeks on his own, but anytime CMC misses, he's an absolute smash. Forgot about Dobbins last year, came out hot. Yeah. And this is the other thing, everyone was hyping Vidal, but there was not a lot. And sometimes you just had to follow the camp reports. Like the camp reports were all about Dobbins and Edwards, and that's who I was drafting. Could have hit really big had I clicked Bucky McMillan and said, yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I didn't take much from Winton, but I took a ton of Parkinson as a late tight end. Teams throwing more and splitting backfields more often. Last year was the outlier that has the sheep star. So, yeah, I agree to an extent, though I don't know if teams are necessarily throwing more. In fact, I think we're having more lower volume quarterbacks because the quarterbacks actually running themselves. So I think quarterback scoring is up, continues to be up because of their rushing and their rushing touchdowns. I think you have certain teams who throw the ball plenty, Burrow, but a couple years ago, we had teams throwing the ball like almost 700 times. I don't think anyone came close to that last year. I think maybe 650 was the highest last year. I'd have to look it up. But I do think teams are spreading it among their receivers more. There's less like true alpha receiver. I mean, I said before, like the 30% target share, only like 2 or 3 receivers any year get that. So when we predicted for Garrett Wilson or TK Metcalf or any of these receivers that feel like they're the only guy, it's probably not likely, just from an odd standpoint. But yeah, let me take, Hunter Henry. Tight end really started to dry up. Don't mind Fryermuth if he comes back as a third. But I do think teams are spraying it out more. I think teams are also throwing to running backs more and more. Not every team, but I mentioned it from Atlanta a couple of years ago. Bijan Robinson, and that was still a Jaron Patterson gained some work, had 86 targets. If you combine the targets, and this is just Arthur Smith, you combine the targets of Jalen Warren and Najee Harris last year, they had 90 combined targets. So they're both adding points. That's the problem is, you need Warren to get like the 80 targets, and I just don't know if he's going to. Austin Eckler, he missed a lot of time, but he added a lot through the passing game. He was getting, 4+ catches, 40 to 50 yards in a number of games. We will go Josh Palmer here. Yeah. Don't mind taking a spike week guy. Love the start of my receiver room. Again, just looking for upside, looking for some guys to hit. But, most weeks, I think Ladd, Adams, and Pearsall really pretty much set to only doing 6 receivers in this build. And so, in fantasy is being split more in general, split backfields. But also, I think throwing the ball to more either split tight ends or split backfields is also, there's less and less like alpha. Only a handful of guys had 10 or more touchdowns receiving last year. That's the other thing, just way more running backs are getting that. And in a half-point PPR system, touchdowns are going to be key. And even a guy like a Chain who only has 6 rushing touchdowns, then he gets 6 receiving touchdowns because he has 90 targets. To pick Kincaid when I have Allen as quarterback, I've been scarred. Yeah, Kincaid is tough. I get that. I get enough Kincaid. I should Calvin really redraft and boom, wide receiver go from. Yeah, no, and honestly, that's why I kind of think whether it's your home league or not, I think best ball is honestly the best way to go. Whether you're doing like a rotisserie style, like a just total points, or even in the head-to-heads, or I know like the Scott Fishbowl, it's like you're head-to-head and you can hit a threshold points to get the win, so you can win get 2 wins each week. So I think styles like that are better, but I do think, this is what makes best ball valuable is we can take these kind of receivers, like the Batemans and Josh Palmers in redraft are terrible picks because you never know when you want to start these guys. But in best ball, if Bateman gets me 5-6 weeks like he did last year, Palmer 4 or 5 weeks, I'm more than happy with that value. Tight end thinned out more than I wanted. We'll bring up Rashard Smith. He's one of my favorite guys. Late. Feeling really good about this. Like I said, I think I'm only stopping at 6 receivers. Might take one with my next pick. Maybe I'll jump into, grab a tight end. I was hoping Juwan Johnson was still there, but he is not. Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And this is what we absolutely need to follow once we get the kind of news. And look, sometimes it misleads us. The Kyron punt returner BS that came out of camp reports, that was more bad process in understanding that. But sometimes it absolutely misleads us. But, you shift through it, and obviously the deeper and deeper you get into camp preseason, I think the more signal it adds. I'll take one more receiver here. I'm just going to go De'Ami Brown. No, Slayton. Slayton's safer. For me, I really like stopping at those 6 wide receivers. Do I play in the FFPC? I've not. Definitely considered giving FFPC a try. I might this year. We'll see. Is in the dregs, but what do you make of QBX scheme in the back-to-back 40-point games to start with the Saints? I think that could translate to Seattle. So first thing I'd say is I think Seattle's offensive line, not good, but I think it's going to be better. One, they added first-round pick Gray Zabel. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play starter at one of the guard spots. I think both their tackles were a little banged up last year. I'm trying to remember. One of them missed significant time. Both appear to be healthy. They have some depth guys who are banged up. They weren't great, but they were also very injured last year. I think it should be improved. Kind of, like the Giants added less, and people are okay with them just because the hope that Andrew Thomas is healthy. Same thing should be with Seattle. And another similar one is, people aren't worried about the Dolphins. And the Dolphins, yes, they added a second-round tackle and they added James Daniels in free agency. But they also lost Teron Armstead. He played 75% of their snaps last year. And I know they're moving Patrick Paul to left tackle, and the hope, Austin Jackson back at right tackle, and hopefully that all works. Maybe it will, but it also could be a really bad team when Armstead is not there for a single snap. So I will go Ferguson here for a third tight end. Also, of course, stacks. And when I have Ingram, Henry, I can take a upside play on Ferguson. We'll probably add either another quarterback just for depth and insurance, or another running back. I'm okay with the running back room. I don't think it's great, but I think it's more than usable and serviceable. As for the rest of the question, does Seattle's offense translate? I think it does. I think Sam Darnold is one of the better deep ball throwing quarterbacks. Sure, Jason and Kupp are not deep ball receivers like Shaheed, but they can fill the Olave role. And then they have MVS and maybe even Arroyo to take some of those deep passes. Arroyo was really big at Miami at vertical seam routes. And speaking of which, Arroyo is here, could do that. I think I'm good at running back. I'm going to take Kenny Pickett. I think there's a real chance he's starting games this year. If so, I could have 5 starters at some point this year, especially with some insurance with, Murray's health, Stafford's age, and of course, Chuck, maybe he's just a complete bust and doesn't do anything. So, and finally with Seattle, I think Darnold's fine. I think they had 2 good running backs. Receivers are above average. Point being, I think the market, at least on UD, is grossly overpriced when there's so much volatility. Absolutely agree with that. At wide receiver, I totally agree. I don't, on a half-point PPR site, I don't know why so many receivers. I think one of the biggest things is I think people treat the flex spot as a 4th receiver spot, and so they look at it. We need to start 4 receivers. I just, kind of totally disagree with that. I think if you draft running backs early enough, they should be starting above in the flex. So you're starting 3 and 3, and then there's just more total receivers than there are running backs. I mean, there's roughly 100 draftable receivers versus 65, 70 running backs, and of course, some of those running backs are just total contingent value. So that's my perception of it, and just from a comparison standpoint, and I always use. I know some people think Mike Robbs talked about this. What has Zay Flowers ever done to me? I like him as a player, but you look at where he goes in drafts. Najee Harris had the same number of points as he did. Najee Harris, even before the Hampton news, was getting drafted around the same point. But it's just there's positional scarcity there. There's more positional scarcity at running back than there is receiver. Tony Pollard had roughly the same number of points as Zay Flowers, that 11, high 10-point range. He goes still in regular drafts 30 spots behind Flowers, like 2.5 rounds. Like, I will take Tony Pollard is more likely to hit my lineup than Zay Flowers. At the very least, it's equal, but I'm getting a 2.5 round discount on the more scarce position. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's the way I approach it. Again, there are times where I start like 3-4 receivers in a row. Absolutely. It's just, I think you're leaving some points on the table when you do that. Enjoy drafting with a bunch of people that love to grab low upside guys at their absolute ceiling. It's adorable. I would consider it. I think you do well. I think, Colin, I would definitely have to check it out at some point, maybe later this month, look into it a bit more. Sorry, everyone that had to get in another pre-flow draft. Hope you all enjoyed that, and hopefully you enjoyed these four different drafts I did. I think I'm gonna probably not go on tomorrow because we have Jeopardy at 4, and then Andrew is doing a show. I believe he's got Sean Mitchell coming on, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow night, 8 or 8:30. Can't remember the time. And then on Thursday, Meg and I are doing Sibling Showdown, I believe at 8. I might be doing a draft earlier that day, or maybe on Friday during the day. Not sure. I think Meg is still figuring out she's probably doing Friends with Basketball still. I know she was working on that today to figure that out on the 4th. If not, I'll probably do a draft on Saturday. Just playing it by ear, trying to, like I said, get 2 to 5 of these shows a week. Probably the first couple weeks will be more like 3. Just working on some other things. But yeah, hope everyone enjoyed it. Thanks to everyone for coming out. Thanks everyone for liking it, watching, drafting with the drafts that you're able to get into. Always enjoy talking ball. Always enjoy, just looking at different perspectives. And that's one of the things is I truly don't think, best ball is solved yet. I think there are some more optimal strategies and just ways to approach it. But we see the winners in the BBM and other tournaments have different strategies every single year. And that's why if you're playing a volume, I always recommend mixing things up, doing things differently. Just when you do it, when you do something that's a little maybe less optimal, make sure you try and do it right and in a way that minimizes any extra risk you're taking. One of the things that I always talk about, I'll leave it on this, is, when people talk about week 17 is all that matters, it's true. As I've said before in these shows, I view the regular season, week 15 and week 16, these are qualifiers. And it's qualifiers where you get your money back and then maybe get a little extra money weeks 15, 16. You're trying to qualify for that week 17 big prize. But it doesn't matter if you build the most optimal week 17 team if you are hurting your chance of advancing in your draftable pod, weeks 1 through 14, week 15, week 16. And so like any extra advantage you get for week 17 is then mitigated if you're making it less likely for that team to get there, is the way I look at it. So keep that in mind. That's my thought on it. And we can obviously talk more later. Let me hit up chat a little bit more before we go. Tim, appreciate it. And appreciate it. 30p. PPR Tyler, good seeing you. I'm sure you streamed tonight. Sorry I missed it. I had to catch it later. Slade, thank you. Appreciate it. Always appreciate talking ball. Eddie, Steve, good seeing you again. How you doing? Hope you had some good drafts tonight. We are wrapping up here, but really enjoyed this. Love talking. I did. Sorry, Eddie. I did 4 drafts on stream, 3 Superflex, and an eliminator. So I just wrapped up a Superflex. I have 10 more to go. So we'll definitely be getting those in this week before it fills. Hope everyone else is enjoying, their week and hopefully a long weekend, and also drafts. And hopefully we'll all get lucky and Underdog releases a few more things later this week. Appreciate everyone again for liking this episode, watching, doing everything. If you're on Twitter, just come over, jump in, just to like, just to comment. Helps us out tremendously. Really appreciate everyone again. And just keep an eye out on Twitter when next time I'll be going live. But like I said, tomorrow we have Jeopardy, the big one, Pete Overzet versus Neil Warfield, 4 p.m. So that should just be a really, really fun one. Looking forward to that. Thank you all again, and I will catch you next time.